Okay,
You'll have to change my name to.
sure, will do. Okay, good morning, everyone. We realized we started the incorrect Zoom room. We opened the meeting and did the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence, and we are discussing agenda items in order. So we've just started. Okay, there you are. Okay, and that is
Claire's
yeah,
on.
she's right there. Okay, great. All right, so we'll move item 6 to number 1. And do we have any other changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the reorganization of bumping item 6 to our first item of new business.
So moved.
Second, any further discussion?
Not for me.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great. All right, do we have community informational items? Commissioner Fiedler?
None for me.
Commissioner Marcella?
So we'll have a work session with a stakeholder group from the Child Care Coalition that's been working on some permanent funding for childcare in our community. Come to us in September, so anxiously awaiting that presentation. And then as far as transit goes, Tim and I have worked with CDOT to solidify our grant award for the MMOF funding, which definitely did take a little longer than we had anticipated taking, but the grant award has been completed and uploaded in our co-trans, which we've accepted. And so we've put our transit consultant in contact with CDOT, and they are working on the first step, which is procurement of the vehicle. So while we're working through the procurement of the vehicle, then we will move into planning for times and stops of the route and staffing of the route. So those are our next steps for transit, and so I'll make a presentation of that in our budget packet, and look forward to planning for that in 2024.
Great, thank you. I have a couple updates on road work on County Road 2. The Sinkhole Department of Reclamation Mine Safety is getting documentation together, and will be working on that repair to repair and open County Road 2. It has been closed for a better of 5 months, almost a year. Wow, look how the time flies. Yeah, I guess winter season was the start of the closure. But we've got that funding and logistics in place to get that work done by the end of this month, is my understanding. Anything to add to that, Michael or Chris?
I haven't had any other updates to it, but
Okay,
just depends on how long it takes on the ground and the ground.
yeah. Excellent. The other update I have is some work done through the natural resource damages in partnership with DRMS as well, and Trout Unlimited, Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative. They're doing field investigations in the Sugarloaf Mining District. So that's south of Turquoise Lake. They're releasing a non-toxic dye into Lake Fork Creek between August 14th and 18th, and this is to assess and monitor wetland groundwater beneath the wetlands. This was one of the projects included in our joint application to the state through the Natural Resource Damage Fund, which includes that application with other partners included mine mitigation, river restoration, forest health work, and fuels mitigation, as well as the culvert replacements for infrastructure bolstering for post-fire flooding and fish passage to improve aquatic habitat. Anything else that comes to mind?
Actually, can I come back? Just wanted to say, I think it's on people's calendars, or on commissioners' calendars and other staff, but GSG Architecture, which is the firm that's doing the master planning or analysis for the renovation of this building. That's sort of the third pathway of the Justice Center needs, looking at possibly trying to renovate or do additions to this building. So they're gonna be on site all day tomorrow, both doing some physical walkthroughs of this building and other facilities, meeting with us, meeting with department heads and other elected officials, and also meeting with some of the other stakeholders, so like occupants of the buildings and everyone who's involved in the design of sort of the Plan A or Plan B at the UP site. But just to say that work is actually moving ahead.
Nice. Great, thank you. I guess just a quick correction of my comments. The work being done on Lake Fork is funded by the U.S. Geological Survey, Trout Unlimited, Bureau of Land Management, State of Colorado, California Gulch Natural Resource Damage Fund, the NRD funds, and Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative. I think I just mentioned DRMS there. Okay, well, thank you all for those updates. And we'll move into public comments. Anyone wishing to have public comment, 3 minutes or less on items not on the agenda? We've got some folks in the room and online. I'll start with folks in the room. Do we have any public comment from anyone in the room? No? All right, we'll go online. Looks like Tamara has her hand up.
Morning, everybody. Just a quick note. I wanted to give a great big shout out. I think we may have had one of the most successful event weekends this past weekend, and that absolutely cannot be done without all of your support, as well as our Lake County Sheriff's Office, our search and rescue, our OEM, just the whole team together. I think we've heard nothing but pretty consistently positive remarks, and just wanted to name that. I think our law enforcement piece has been bumped up significantly in terms of our communications between police department and sheriff's department. So just really wanted to give a shout out to everybody, and then a big giant thank you for everything that went into making this past weekend as successful as it was. We can't do it without you, and appreciate the last minute conversations where we had to juggle a few things and figure a few things out, and everybody's willingness to just stay in the solution mode and try to work through those pieces. So that's really all I wanted to do today, was just say thank you.
Thanks, Tamara. It did seem like a really well done event. Heard a lot of side comments about that, so I hope it went as smoothly as it seemed to.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other public comments, either online or in the room? All right, I don't see any. We will move on. So the first item on our business was posted as item 6. We've moved to item 1. We have the consideration of approval of unbudgeted software purchase for Zone Haven and Evacuation Management Program by Genesis for Lake County Office of Emergency Management to expand pre-planning, incident response, and public information capabilities related to evacuations and other incidents. We have our Office of Emergency Management Director here, Claire Skeen, online with us. Claire, do you want to lead us in this discussion?
Yes, and I apologize. I just tested my camera before I came into this meeting, and I guess it's still not working. So I apologize for not having my camera on. But thank you guys so much today for the time to talk about Zone Haven, and thank you for the flexibility to move me to the top of the agenda. And thank you to everyone that I jumped over as well. I really appreciate the flexibility on this. So today I'm asking you all to consider a 3-year contract for Zone Haven, which is an evacuation management software. For that 3 years, the total cost is $12,450. And I'm proposing that we pay for that using cost savings from the specialist position in the OEM office. So to talk about the software a little bit, there's 2 components to it. The first is a pre-planning, more internal use for OEM, and then our first responders in the sheriff's office, Leadville PD, and fire as well. So we would work with Zone Haven to create zones for all of Leadville and Lake County. So looking at all the different neighborhoods, looking at different populations and geographic barriers such as roads, and kind of come up with these different zones. So people, every neighborhood, every house would fit into one of these zones. And that would allow us during an incident where if we had to do an evacuation, we would evacuate instead of saying, all right, we're going to evacuate neighborhood 1, 2, 3, and 4. We can just go, we're evacuating zone A. And that way, both our residents, our visitors, and first responders, everyone can know that we're evacuating that one zone, and it makes communication a little bit clearer. So that would allow for a lot better pre-planning and as well as training and preparation. So out of those with those zones, we can also put in different traffic control points and kind of plan for that. Shelters, evacuation centers for both humans and animals. We can pre-populate all that data behind the scenes and then launch it if it needs to go live. But we can also make notes for us to know that if we have this traffic control point, we'll need X amount of people to staff it and these amount of supplies. And after we kind of get all the information in there, we can create printed PDF booklets for first responders, public works, anyone, whether that's on a tablet or a physical hard copy book, and get those into rigs in the hands of people and our mutual aid partners. So if the internet would go down, which is very possible out here, we could have all that information printed and handed out and not relying on any internet services. This also helps us with our training for evacuations. So Zonehaven has a really great data management system where they can kind of understand how many, for example, cars could be in a neighborhood at 2 a.m. on a Wednesday versus 2 p.m. on a Saturday. And we can run time clearance modeling for our trainings and understand what maybe different traffic points would look like, or maybe any traffic congestions if we were to evacuate a certain zone. So that's kind of the first internal part of Zonehaven. The second part of it is more public information and awareness, and this expands outside of incidents. We can use this for kind of general information as well. And I can hopefully share my screen here. Oh, sorry, would you guys mind enabling me to share, and I can show you all what Boulder's doing?
Should be able to now.
Thank you. So can you all see the Genesis map?
It's working
It's
still.
working, yeah.
Give it a second.
Claire, you might have to try it one more time.
Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay. Do you want to send it to the BOCC room and I can try to share?
Yeah. And oh. Sorry, I accidentally sent it directly to CC instead of to the BOCC.
No, it's okay.
So when it pulls up, you guys will kind of see what Boulder's doing. So Boulder, both the city and county use this software for evacuation management, but also public information. So you should be able to see all of the zones that they've created. And what they can also do is post road closures. Their sheriff just recently used it as a DUI notification checkpoint for an area when they were going to launch that. We could use it, for any type of road closures that Public Works has going on, but also like to highlight our mitigation efforts if we wanted to kind of put that up there and say, hey, so there's going to be mitigation going on in this area. But also during an incident, we can show what zones have been evacuated, and this also gives people the ability to go and check on different zones, ones that live outside of Lake County, like family members, or even in Lake County. So if we're doing an evacuation in the northern end of the county, people on Twin Lakes can log on to this live website and see what's been evacuated, what hasn't been evacuated, and what the status of each of those zones are. So also anyone that's on, that's using Zone Haven. So for Boulder, for example, or it's currently being also used in the city of Colorado Springs, soon to be El Paso, it's all live on one website. So if you guys zoom out a little bit more, I think actually, and kind of goes south towards Clear Creek, I believe there was a fire reported there. Maybe it's not showing up there anymore. So yeah, I was in that area, sorry. But earlier today, there was a fire reported in that area, and like a little fire symbol had popped up to indicate that that was going down. But also if you go down near Colorado Springs, yep. So yeah, it'll kind of show the area if there's any active fires in the state as well. But if you were to go down to the city of Colorado Springs, you could zoom into all of their zones as well. And if they had any active evacuations, even if you live in Boulder, even if you live in Lake County, you can see everything from there. So it's a really great public information tool. It does integrate well with Everbridge, which is our alerting system where we send our emergency alerts. And they're currently doing some beta testing with ArcGIS as well. So that's kind of a really brief overview of the system, and you guys are seeing what our public would see, and I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
Cool. Quick question, Claire, do we have information, does Lake County have information on this platform regardless of being a subscriber right now? Public see any updated activity going on, or is that an additional benefit to subscribing? I'm thinking of how important that can be with evacuations and detours and reroutes through the visitors' high peak season, but.
So sorry, I'm not quite following your question.
So as the public can see activity around the state, does that get populated regardless of being a subscriber to the software in your county? Or now that we might be a subscriber, that'll be an additional information that is open and available?
So if we were to purchase the software, we would be able to kind of put on live information about anything going on in our county out there. Like City of Denver isn't using this. If a City of Denver resident logged on and wanted to see evacuation statuses in Boulder, they would be able to do that.
Okay. And I'm sorry if you said this as I was trying to shuffle through documents here. Does like the Forest Service use that as well, and other larger land management partners?
They do not, no. Zone Haven is in conversations with a bunch of different counties surrounding us. So I demoed it with Chaffee County originally. And they're also reaching out to Park County, and then they just signed the contract with El Paso County as well. So there's a lot of different counties using Zone Haven in Colorado. Some of them haven't signed contracts yet. The talks are still just occurring. But right now the Forest Service is not using it. Zone Haven, they do put like fire data on there, as you guys saw with the Lowline fire. So Gunnison County is not using Zone Haven right now, but the Lowline fire information was still on there.
Okay, that answers my question. Great, thank you.
I had a question, I'm sorry, maybe you said this, and like the actual zones, like that, we create those, like or are those pre-populated? I'm assuming we have a lot of control over that.
Yeah, we've already got several zones already mapped out.
Yeah.
For access and stuff, where you could get to them.
So we could import those somehow or create them in Zone Haven. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
So we do have zones. I believe they were last kind of updated in 2019. So we would send all that information to Zone Haven, and they would kind of work with that to create zones, and they would propose to us what they've seen, and then we can edit as necessary. And they encourage those edits if the zone were to cross like a large highway, for example. We'd be like, no, there's actually a really large highway. That's a horrible place to put a zone boundary. And we can edit it.
Yeah, okay, great.
I really like the request, and it seems to add some capacity and structure to conversations and just kind of a better way to share that too with partners and other jurisdictions that will need to be quickly and easily communicated with in the event of an emergency. But any other questions for Claire? Any concerns or?
None for me, no.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Sure. I will make a motion that we move forward with the contract for Zone Haven LLC.
I'll second.
Or any further discussion?
None for me?
None for me, thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great, thank you, Claire.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm really excited to get this launched and out, and I think it's going to add a lot to not only our evacuation planning, but all of our pre-planning. It's a great tool. So thank you all.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right, we'll move back to our original order of business. And next on our list is the discussion and consideration of professional service agreement with Lake County Builder Generation for the engagement of promotores supporting the work in Colorado Outdoor Equity Grant. And we've got Vanessa Saldivar here to speak with us. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. Well, first, I just want to start, well, actually, no, I'll just give you some background. So Goal was a recipient of the Colorado Outdoor Equity Grant this year, and this grant is supporting our community programs for Latina families. Specifically, that's our monthly outdoor series, Fuera Sin Barreras, and our Promotores program, for which this agenda item is about. So the Promotores program model involves the engagement of trusted community members as cultural advisors and ambassadors to Goal programs, and they are compensated for this time, for this work that they're doing. So we would like to partner with our community partners to engage the promotores as described in our grant scope of work and as required by our grant deliverables. So our grant officer with the Colorado Parks and Wildlife has been notified and is in complete support of the way that we would be doing this. And in fact, she said it enhances the grant application because it shows just our partnerships that we are working together as a community and serving our community. The PSA with LCBAG would cover this partnership. Noah is out of the office this week and he has requested specific changes to the PSA, so it's actually not ready in its current draft.
Okay.
So what I'm requesting is that the BOCC approve the agreement pending changes from Noah and final review from Chris again.
Very good.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate any issues with that. It's just the logistics of Noah not being available right now to do
Okay.
it. So I would support that request.
Great. Excellent. Any questions thank you, Vanessa. Any questions?
So,
I don't have any questions either.
Thanks. I'll entertain a motion to approve the PSA with Lake County Builder Generation regarding the Colorado Outdoor Equity Grant pending requested changes and review by legal.
So moved.
second?
Any further discussion?
None for me,
None for
thank
me.
you.
All right. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you.
Next on our list, we have discussion and consideration of a PSA with Bert Holt LLC for $2,000 unbudgeted expense of a re-illustration of existing logo at higher resolution in both color and grayscale. I think, yep,
Hi.
there she is, you're hiding.
I'm hiding.
We've got Sarah Edwards,
Yes.
our communication director here. Thanks,
As
Sarah.
discussed at the work session last week, we have a tiered strategy to update our county branding materials starting with re-rendering our current logo so we can use it in black and white and various larger iterations than currently available with our teeny tiny file size. And we have a reasonable bid from Berthold, who was recommended as a very competent illustrator by Adam Ducharme. And his bid is $1,900, assuming that we follow a reasonable back and forth process with the design, which he described in the bid. So I would love your consideration.
Thanks, cool, thank you. I have no questions for you, yeah, after the work session the other day, that's, well, I guess I have one question. And at that time frame, his time frame we'll be able to follow our website.
Yes, if we're able to get this approved today by you and with Chris's approval, of course, on the contract side of it, he will have the final render for me a week before our deadline to send those things to the web developers. So that gives us a little bit of wiggle room around the Labor Day holiday too.
Okay.
Nice, thank
I
you.
would just suggest approve pending final.
Okay. Okay, great.
I will make a motion that we approve the PSA with Berthold LLC for $2,000 unbudgeted expense for the re-illustration of the existing logo at a higher resolution in color and grayscale.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
Not for me.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
very good, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next we have the discussion and consideration of professional service agreement with Savio House, part of the core service plan for multi-system therapy in-home with adolescents. And we have our human services director, Janine McGee, online with us.
She's ready. She was down in her office.
Oh, okay,
She's coming in.
there she is. I was like, well, I'm really losing it. Wait, what? All right, Janine, you're up. Yes, please, give us some background here. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, so we worked this through legal a couple times. Savio House is out of El Paso County and provides what's called multi-system therapy, which is a fabulous program. They work with adolescents in home. And they do have services in English and Spanish. This is part of our core service plan. And this is the individual contract with Savio House for the services. They've been a great partner. This funding and contract is specifically for situations in which the family doesn't have Medicaid, and then it's paid for out of our core service funds. And we worked on the payment arrangement in terms of whether it was a portion of the month that was billed or how that worked, but we figured it out between them. Savio House has been doing this also since 2016, I think. Okay. So, yeah, it's been great.
Okay.
Questions on it or on multi-system therapy? It's a really, really good program for particularly when we have what's called PA4, which is youth in conflict. So.
And yeah, I would offer or invite you to go give us a little more information on that and how other partners might be involved as well. Or is the school district and wraparound or?
Yeah, I mean, there are oftentimes, this is typically a child welfare referral, but often done in cases that we don't screen in. And we may be doing a prevention case in which wraparound may be also a referral. But MST is both an intervention and a prevention framework. So it helps us in cases where we may not, so the PA4 and the youth in conflict cases don't always warrant an open assessment for child welfare. But there's sometimes just things going on in the home in terms of challenging parenting. Whether it's figuring out how to set boundaries, how to establish rules, how to establish respect, how to, for the adolescent, often how to be heard, come to some agreement. When we do have MST and wraparound in place, our outcomes are very good. So it's not uncommon for us to have both in place. Typically, the starting point for those cases are with child welfare. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a child welfare assessment or an open case, it can be a referral. So it's a really good use of community resources in preventing child welfare involvement. And it is one of the top evidence-based programs in the country. So the federal sort of regulations that came down several years ago through the Family First Prevention Services Act highlighted top programming that would be most recommended. And MST was one of them. The other one being Nurse Family Partnership. So those two home-based visitation programs are rated as highly effective. So yeah, I would, just to cite like some of those outcomes, one of the things that has worked with wraparound with these adolescent cases and often involving multiple system therapies is that in our prior fiscal year, every one of the child welfare cases that was referred to wraparound in which both systems were involved, MST and wraparound, we had 100% of those cases had no further child welfare involvement. So we are really grateful to Savio House. They are kind of the predominant provider of this service in rural communities. I think they're in 7 counties now. And their work has been really excellent. Even through COVID, they did it via telehealth. They provide bilingual services as well. So yeah, there's a prep process that has to happen with the family in terms of their openness and receptivity to it. Sometimes the first time around they aren't as open, but any families that we work with on an extended period that have engaged have had pretty good successes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're grateful to have them as part of our core service funding. Core service funding is unique to Colorado. It is specifically for therapeutic services and prevention services for child welfare involved families, and is separate from our child welfare block allocation. And it's about $9 million a year that's available specifically for these therapeutic services. And is state funded. So we're grateful for that as well. It's an additional supplement.
Excellent. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah.
I have no other questions for Janine.
No, I don't either. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, none for me. So I'll go ahead and move that we approve the PSA with Savio House as part of the core service plan for multi-system therapy in-home with adolescents.
A second?
Okay, any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 Great, and next we have an overview of Lake County Health Agency activities, also led by Janine McGee.
I think it's in the packet, just the update of reports, so I don't have a whole lot to add to that. Just wanted to make sure that you all were getting information on staff activities. Everybody's plugging along and seeing patients and also doing community outreach. The breastfeeding support group had activities during boom days, and I think those were fairly successful as well. So don't have a lot at this point. I know we'll do more this week in budget prep and that'll be coming up.
Okay. And with exploring and pursuing a partnership with Summit Care Community Clinic, we'll kind of expand and see how that partnership, where roles and opportunities kind of present themselves for the community in a bigger role for public health. I had been meaning to reach out to you in the last couple of weeks, Janine. Us sitting as the Board of Equalization and Property Taxes, talking about a lot of folks on fixed income and still yet to have the conversation of, potential programs or support. But talking about the senior exemptions, I would love to encourage and suggest that Rochelle, our aging wellness coordinator, and maybe even Harry Beck, the Veteran Services Officer, and y'all sit down so that, because I know that whether it's just been lost over time and understanding all the programs, but we do have a lot more, and maybe a broader eligibility pool or criteria today. But I think it would be great to sit down with you to share opportunities and resources with both of them, so they can continue to promote that. Great. Any questions for Janine?
None for me.
I don't have any questions. I think maybe actually just moving into the budget process, it would be helpful to see the budget stuff broken down by program and fiscal year, because I think that there's a lot of intermixed fiscal years in there, so that might be really helpful to see, like, aligned with human services budget, like in that kind of format where it's like program, county match, and then total expenditure. So that would be really helpful for me to see, to kind of gauge where we're at with public health and county support with public health, and then utilize that for when we're working with agencies and surrounding counties to understand how they leverage dollars. So that'd be helpful.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Cool, thank you.
Great. Thank you for the update. See, I lost my place.
We're number 5 on culverts.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jane. All right, next on our agenda, we have discussion of box culverts and bridges, that a replacement program over the next 5 years, beginning this fall of 2023. This is again, another project under the Natural Resource Damages in partnership with Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative. Public Works is a huge champion of this component of the grant that Lake County has been awarded at least a year or so ago now. We were awarded $3.9 million to match those 3 different kind of categories in that mine and river restoration and mitigation, culvert replacement, and forest health. So part of our award process is to present and update the community on that project. We have 6 culverts. 7. One of them, 6 county culverts.
Yeah.
One of them is a Forest Service culvert up Half Moon Road, and I can pull up the map here. But Michael, do you?
There's a presentation in the packet if you want to send it.
Oh, I can definitely do that.
You don't come up where I can see it.
Bridge replacement?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, all right, we've got Michael Irwin and Chris Sartola with Public Works here.
Okay.
So this is a 5-year planning for the bridge replacement. This picture I like because this is actually County Road 9 on the Arkansas River a few years ago. And you can see, you can't see 3 culverts that are there.
No.
And I like it because there's actually one
Oh, sorry, I'm just gonna hide there, now you go.
right there.
Yeah.
But if you go to the next picture, this is the first bridge that we replaced as a county. This is during runoff this year. You can see the water, there's still a lot of room under there. water's flowing really good. Next one, this is the downhill side of that at the same time.
Okay.
That exit, and you can see it's flowing out of there really good, it's still got lots of room to go. So this is what we're looking at replacing on all 6 of the county ones.
Okay.
And I believe that's what the Forest Service is also looking at. And I do have a picture of where the Forest Service is on here too. We visited it yesterday.
Go to the next one?
Yeah,
Okay. You just tell me when to click.
okay.
Okay.
So this is the first one that we're looking at doing. This is County Road 11. You can see concrete is falling off around the culverts. Actually, this area down here, there's nothing underneath that concrete wall. And across the top between the 2 of them, there's a depression in the road, which scares me because that means there's nothing there. I mean, it's sinking.
Okay.
So this is a really important one to get done this year. And we're working on the logistics of that right now. We're looking at starting that around the 25th of September. We've had some engineering difficulties, but I think we've worked through them. If everything goes right, it should be about 6 weeks later, there'll be a bridge and the road will be open. This one, we have to build a bypass road, which is some of the logistic problems, because this bridge supplies access only one way in and out. There is no other way to get out of here except for through the forest, which is a long, pretty rough drive to get out through Lodgepole Flats. Click. Next one for next year is County Road 5A. This is the inlet. You can see beavers are building dams there. You can see the beaver pond in the background. So most of that beaver pond will probably be drained when we put the new bridge in. But this culvert, you can see the rust line, but water is actually flowing in from the outside. So that means that if the bottom's rusted out, it's done. And we've got 2 more overflow culverts right next to that. That'll go with it. So next one, this is the downhill side of that. You see how all the bottoms of the culverts are up out of the water and then dropping off the culverts. It makes it really difficult for fish to cross back and forth through those culverts. So hopefully we'll improve the fishery along there also.
Okay.
Next picture. This is County Road 4 at the Arkansas River. This will happen in 2025. This one and County Road 5A, we're already working on the engineering stuff to get these all lined up and designed. We're trying to get them started this year, so it'll take at least a year to get all that done. But you can see these culverts. This is the inlet side of County Road 4. You can see the rust lines in them too. I don't know when these ones are replaced, but I'm assuming probably in the late 60s. Next picture. And downhill side again, culverts out of the water. Hard to let fish flow back and forth. So this is.
And it doesn't always look, that's pretty full.
Yeah, it is. Pretty nice. Right now, when we were down there yesterday, there was hardly any water going through those, so
Okay.
it's really hard for fish to swim when there's no water.
Yeah.
Next slide. This is the one I forgot, and Jonathan's on here yesterday, I forgot this one. So this is County Road 9, by the railroad tracks on the north side of Turquoise Lake. You can see 3 culverts, very little water flowing through them. You can see the rust line on them. These were replaced probably in 2014, somewhere around that time frame. Just because they were washing away, and I think we had an extra culvert to make sure we had enough volume for the water to flow through. As you can see, culvert outlets above the water, fish patch is difficult. On the other side, if you click the picture, oh, that's not. The other side, there's beaver ponds that back up the river forever, and we're always cleaning out beaver dams on the inlets to those culverts. 2027, this is up Evans Gulch. This is one year when it overflowed, 2015. There's actually a culvert that crosses the road right here. And it overflowed that culvert and then washed about 3 of them out down the road. So we're replacing that to make it bigger and so it doesn't do that. That's the last one. Oh, the next one is the Forest Service, sorry. So this is the location, approximate location where the Forest Service is also going to put one of those in. As you can see, the river is kind of narrow here. You'll see in the next picture why they moved it downstream. Go ahead. So this one is the existing culvert, big culvert. We were talking about it yesterday, not sure why the little one's there because it really doesn't do much. But you can see the riverbed is really wide there. So they're going to take this one out and reclaim it and move the bridge further down so that it narrows the river down and keeps it in its natural course.
Okay.
And not spreads out like it has been up to this one. I think that's it. This is just the process that we'll go through. I'm not gonna read it all because it's, but basically, you know, go in, get the site surveys done, the engineering completed. Demolition takes a little bit of time, up to probably a week or a week and a half. Temporary reconstruction of the riverbed to protect it from construction hazards. That means we actually move the riverbed, narrow it down so that it continues to flow through. And I wish I had a picture of that, but I just didn't add any. So that we can work on the sides, putting in the foundations for the bridge, and we don't keep disrupting the water and making it dirty for the fish and fishing them downstream. Put in the new foundations, and then the first bridge that we did, we've done 2 of these so far. One is at the north end or the west end of Turquoise Lake. And there we were able to, we built it actually on site or inside on the foundations. On County Road 9, we actually built it up on the road, which made it really easy because we could use ladders and stuff and have firm fitting or firm footing and everything. And then we picked it up with the crane and set it onto the foundation, and it seemed to make it work, move a little bit faster and everything, because all we had to do is go back and tighten up all the bolts. Then construction placement of the head walls on the one in County Road 11, we'll be able to do one set of head walls, but we're trying to narrow it down, and then after we get people driving on the bridge, we'll be able to do the other set of head walls and wing walls. Paving the new section road, installing the Jersey barriers and opening the roadway. We will have that open hopefully by the end of November. Next picture, next slide. This is just the master budget we went through when we were doing all of these projects together, and you can see the river crossings right here. That's the total that we had to match or get from someplace. And we did. That's where we got almost $4 million from the NRD funds, along with all the other projects that are going on with Trout Unlimited, Arwick.
DRMS, CSFS, lots of US
There's a
Forest
whole bunch of
Service.
people that are involved in this.
Yep.
Next slide. I think that's it. Question?
I have a question. Those box culverts, they're not, like when I think of a culvert, I think of a pipe, but the bottom of it is natural river.
native soil, native ground.
Yeah,
So that makes it
it's a
really easy.
bridge.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I call them bridges.
Yeah,
I keep being told that they're box
Box
Others,
culverts.
yeah.
yeah, no, but that's great, because like that, I mean, those pictures you were showing where just over time things shift, and
Yeah.
so however the riverbed shifts, it should still have fish passing.
Yeah, it still has
Yeah.
less fish. And then when we did the one on the Arkansas and County Road 9, we also placed boulders inside of it so that it would slow the water down so the fish could rest before they moved on.
Yeah,
So, and that was part of,
yeah,
because we used funding for that from NRD too, I believe,
Mhm.
Run Jack.
Yeah, if I could, just some history on the last 20+ years of work on the river restoration and the natural resource damages, California Gulch natural resource damage, funding that has been in Lake County community. The Upper Arkansas River Restoration Project managed the private side of those funding dollars, which is approximately $10 million of the $20 million settlement. There was 10 million for the public side, which was utilized through partners like Lucosi, but really mostly underutilized. There was a lot of activity with the Upper Arkansas River Restoration Project. Brunjack was the manager there. Brett Jordan is a water engineer who we continue to work with on this project. He'll look at those culvert crossings, and there is also a smaller river restoration project that he's leading in the overall proposal and package of projects. They did the river restoration. There was a lot, they helped move our status from sewer level status to gold medal waters, and running out of projects. We partnered and learned from the Lake Fork project that was done in 2019, I think, below the dam. They did a little bit of river restoration there. Upper Arkansas River Restoration Project partnered with the county when County Road 9 failed, and there was an opportunity for them they supplied the funding, the entirety of the funding for the purchase of the bridge. While the natural resource damages and the trustees are looking at that mitigation from mining impacts in the community and really a natural resource and environmental perspective, there's also a incredible mutual benefit of addressing these infrastructure pieces that's been identified in our hazard mitigation plan over the years. It also supports post-fire flooding and forest management and fuel mitigation efforts in the event that we do have, that kind of activity in a wildfire that might happen in the county. So again, further connecting the dots, Claire presented that evacuation route software, which is just all the parts and pieces to kind of build those stronger partnerships with stakeholders in the community. We've got some funding support from Colorado Springs and Aurora Water and Pueblo, who have water in Turquoise and Twin. So these jurisdictions are really concerned about all of those aspects, and it's really nice to have been able to come together and been awarded that through the state in partnership. Especially, I see Jonathan Packlian online. He's the executive director of the Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative. But ARWIC continues to help the county and seek funding. They were awarded and secured funding to cover the engineering costs of these, and we will work together to continue to chip away at all that match funding needed throughout the next 5 years of the project. Jonathan, do you have anything to add for us?
I think you guys nailed it. I'll just keep everybody informed that we'll be sending CDPHE all of this information regarding the progress. We took monitoring photos yesterday, pre-construction photos with Michael, and so we'll be sending that over as part of our reporting. So we'll just keep chipping away at those things, make sure that the grantors are happy and you guys get your money. So if anybody has any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer any. Michael's your guy as far as any of the details of the bridges and culverts. Thanks.
Thank you.
I don't really have something right now. No, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, and thanks for all your hard work. This is huge project that it's nice to get that support and kind of get it in the queue to be taken care of.
Yeah,
And get some money to put toward.
Yeah.
If the Bureau of Reclamation works with us this year and does not flood us, we should.
Yeah, so what are they replacing or working on?
They're doing something with both generators of the power plant. So they're gonna have the power plant and pipeline shut down. So they need to reroute all the water from Turquoise
They need to
down
move
to
the
Arkansas
water.
or Lake
Yeah.
Fork Creek, right where we're gonna be working, so.
Hopefully that goes through the pipeline though, and it's not a
They're gonna
natural.
move as much as they can through the pipeline until they shut the power plant down, and then it has to go through Lake Fork Creek.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it'll be a release, no more than 400 cubic feet a second, but that's a lot of water.
That's a lot of
That's
water.
a
Yeah,
lot.
that's the max, because we have had an event down there, you can tell on
Yeah.
5A, all the orange sediment.
Yeah.
Which is yeah, part of how we put in place that maximum release level volume. Great.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Anything else?
Nope, that should do it.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks for joining us, Jonathan. We really appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jump down to number 7.
Okay. We have discussion and consideration of our liquor license for Leadville Pump House, doing business as Pump House Shell and Carner Real Estate Services Incorporated. Oh, sorry, there's two separate ones, aren't there?
Yeah, so one is for
Doing, okay,
the Leadville Pump House, DBA Pump House Shell, and then the second one is for Carner Real Estate Services.
okay, and they're doing business as Climax Revival.
Yes.
Both of these are new licenses, correct, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay.
Here's the first one.
We have community planning and development here. Any comments there? I know one of these has a conditional use permit, and do we need to know what the status of that may be and if we're correct in entertaining this at this point in time?
Sure, I think what we would just share with the board is that we've been in contact with Mr. Carner and have explained to him that we still have 21 conditions of approval before operations can actually start on the site for special event facility use. And so while the permit may be heard today for the liquor license, it really won't become relevant or usable until he's able to meet those other conditions of approval. And so we have had a conversation with him directly to just communicate that.
Okay, so is there concern over us approving that today or any different path that you would request?
I don't really think, we just wanted to make sure that the applicant was aware that if the permit was granted, there are still other requirements of the use before the license would be applicable. So we've had that conversation, we just wanted to make sure that there was an awareness, because there are quite a few remaining conditions. And we are meeting with the applicant this week. Actually, I think it's been moved to next week, just to go through those 21 conditions of approval. And so we just wanted to let the board know we've been in communication with the applicant, and so they are aware that this is a subsequent license once, and it becomes relevant once that they've met all the other conditions.
Okay.
So I don't think that there's any potential delay in the outcome of the permit, just that we wanted to make sure that the board knew that we're working directly with the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
You can open the public hearing.
Yes,
You're ready.
all right. I will open the public, let's see, we'll do one at a time here. We'll do the Leadville Pump House, doing business as the Pump House Shell, and I'll open the public hearing for the public input portion of the public hearing, and open it up for any public comments on the liquor license request. Do we have anything online or in the room?
And sorry, this is for Pump House first.
Yes, sir,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
I don't. Cindy, did your office receive any public comments on the liquor license?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And as far as we know, everything was
I believe
posted
so, yeah.
appropriately. Okay. I don't have anything further.
All right. Anyone else want to speak on behalf of the application?
Yeah, I'm here. My name is AJ, and I'm representing the Leadville Pump House.
Hi, AJ, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, no problem.
Any comments you'd like to add?
No, this is for beer, beer license. Actually, it's not a liquor. This application is for a beer license, and we're currently in the process of expanding the store, and we're adding a walk-in cooler, so that's why we applied for the beer license, so that we could incorporate that in our code vault.
Okay.
The CPD staff just has a question for the clerk's office, if there are any criteria between distance requirements between different facilities.
I know Tracy had looked that up, but I don't know what the outcome was. That I don't know, sorry.
Yes, she did go through so that's like, our initial application was for a liquor license, and when we had a meeting with Tracy, she looked up the distances between other businesses that are in the close vicinity, and Leadville, or we being a small town, so the condition of less than 10,000 resident, where another facility could be, I can't exactly remember the distance, but so she did check the distance requirement.
And that's what I'm remembering from the Safeway request was, there was a 300, gosh, I can't remember what the 300 foot, there was 300 feet and 1,500 feet, but that was kind of a criteria to help us trigger something should the board decide that was too high a saturation. That was kind of a guideline, I think, rather than a hard regulation on that. Seeing one more last call for public comment on the liquor license here. And seeing no one raising their hand to make public comment, I'll close the public input portion of the hearing. Any other questions either for the applicant or the clerk's office before our consideration?
None for me.
None for me.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
Sure. I will make a motion that we approve the liquor license for the Leadville Pump House Incorporated, DBA Pump House Shell.
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
None for me.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, thank you, AJ.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, and next we will, I will open the public input portion of our liquor license hearing for Karner Real Estate Services Incorporated, doing business as Climax Revival. Any comments on, any public comment for this liquor license application? I am not seeing any public comment. Seeing none, I will close the public input portion of the public hearing for the liquor license. Do we have any other questions for staff on this?
None for me.
None for me, thank you.
Okay. Seeing none, or hearing none, sorry. Well, I don't have a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah. I will make a motion that we approve the liquor license for Karner Real Estate Services Incorporated, doing business as the Climax Revival.
I'll second.
Okay, and I will just reiterate Community Planning and Development's comments that this should not be useful or going to effect until the applicant has met all other conditions of their conditional use permit for the use on that property. And that is of, I think, important to note, as it is really, I mean, there were a lot of challenges and concerns on that application with access and other kind of environmental health issues to be, and requirements to be met. So hope that our applicant abides by the proper kind of process and timeline of events that need to happen. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Okay, next on our list, Cindy and Tim, discussion and consideration of $183,865.56 grant from the Electronic Recording Technologies Fund to reimburse the county for all e-recording activities from 2018 to present. And our clerk and recorder submitted this grant. We were awarded this grant, and any other, I mean, I think that title kind of sums it up. But any other comments, either from Clerk Lauritzen is out of town, Cindy as deputy clerk, do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Okay.
Tim was gonna
Yeah, no, it's a grant from the state to reimburse for election security, the election technology, which ties into the security. This is just a reimbursement to our general fund.
Excellent. Okay, appreciate, it's nice to have sought this grant and to get that reimbursement. Anything else?
I would just also comment that I reviewed the grant award and the terms and conditions and just suggest that the clerk's office work with their grant administrator when they come on board to make sure that the reporting and all the requirements for that grant are met.
Yeah.
Just because I know how busy that office is, and that's something that can easily kind of fall through the gaps.
Yeah, definitely. Do we understand, with this one, my perspective would be if it was for reimbursement of costs already incurred, maybe we've supplied all of that invoicing and that information, or do we anticipate further reporting necessary?
There could be future.
The agreement
for this
does
year.
talk about, and there's like closeout reporting and all of that kind of stuff too.
Okay.
What has been done,
Yeah.
which is something I'm working on, leading to a larger discussion with the board on seeking grants, grant approvals, having board approval for grants, before folks go out and get them.
Okay, great. Great. I guess we want to acknowledge, and also, I do have a DocuSign document to verify the acceptance of the grant, so if we might entertain a motion to direct the chair to sign the grant documentation for the Electronic Recording Technology Fund, that would be great.
I'll make a motion that we will direct the chair to sign the DocuSign for the receipt of the electronic recording technology grant for $183,865.56.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
Not for me.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Okay, and next on our list, we have a final decision following a public hearing from July 24th before the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners to consider land use application for Sagestone Ranch to operate a group camp vacation lodge at 156 Highway 82, Twin Lakes, Colorado. We have Community Planning and Development here, our Director, Ann Schneider, and bringing the recommendation forward from the Planning Commission for approval. Ann?
So I'm gonna go ahead and read that recommendation from the Planning Commission into the record for the board. So at that hearing, the members of the Planning Commission unanimously approved to recommend approval conditionally of file 2309 Sagestone Ranch CUP to the Board of County Commissioners. The motion was made by Joey Edwards and seconded by Abby Dahlman with the following conditions. Number one, as submitted, the maximum overnight occupancy shall not exceed 22 people. Number two, that the trash shall be kept in a bear-proof container and routinely removed from the property. Number three, all signage is required to obtain a sign permit prior to the placement on the property. Number four, prior to operations, the property owner shall acquire an approved water supply through the Colorado Division of Water Resources and provide verification to CPD. Number five, the applicant shall apply for a change in occupancy with the building department to address the inclusion of commercial occupants. Number six, the applicant shall provide CPD compliance with all fire marshal requirements prior to the start of operations, and the fire marshal may allow occupancy for a limited amount of time while requirements are achieved. Number seven, all exterior lighting shall be dark sky compliant. Number eight, the property owner shall include information about fire danger and a QR code posted somewhere accessible for occupants to check fire ban status. The OEM website could provide this for improved situational awareness by guests. Number nine, the property owner shall address the barn encroachment with CPD. And number 10, any new driveway access shall be approved and permitted through Public Works. And then, of course, all statements and representations made by the applicant through the applicant and hearing shall be binding and considered as conditions of approval. And they further found that the approval criteria pursuant to the Lake County Land Development Code, section 3.6.1F has been met as evidenced in the staff report dated July 24th, 2023 for the file, which we've included within the recorded documents.
Great, thank you. I don't have any questions for the applicant. Does anybody else?
No, I think the only only question that I have really is for Anne on, condition number 5 with the change in occupancy in the building department. Does that get referred to the assessor's office? Or
No,
how
that's
does
our
that?
building inspection, so that's
Okay.
a building inspection and
Okay.
potentially an amendment to their building permit. So
Okay,
they currently have a building permit to add an addition to the
Okay.
existing residence. And so we just need to consider that with the commercial occupancy.
oh, okay, perfect, great.
Okay. Excellent, I think, were all of us present at the hearing? Okay,
Yes.
all of us were present at the hearing.
Yes.
And had a chance to ask our questions at that time. It doesn't seem like anybody has any follow-up questions. Any comments, last comments from the applicant? No? Okay. Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I will make a motion that we approve file number 23-09 for the Sagestone Ranch CUP with conditioned as read into the record.
I'll second.
Great, any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
None for me.
Nothing for me. Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Congratulations.
Okay, next item for discussion, we have discussion and consideration of submitting a letter of interest to the Colorado Affordable Housing Finance Fund, overseen by the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, otherwise known as OEDIT, to fund furthering housing administered by the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority. We have our housing director here, Jackie Wheelahan, and we also have Michael Leahy online. Take it away. We did have a work session, our last work session, we discussed this. There's 2 programs that were being proposed for the county to apply for. One is for land banking towards public projects, and the other is an infrastructure program. Jackie, would you or Michael give us another brief overview?
So I'm gonna introduce Michael again. So Michael Leahy is on the Zoom call. He is founder of Castlewood Capital Partners. He's a member of the Leadville County Regional Housing Authority Development Subcommittee. He's an experienced developer, consultant, and capital markets advisor focusing on workforce housing development in rural Colorado, and has extensive experience with public-private partnerships involving housing authorities. In our work session last week, we talked about some exciting opportunities with Prop 123, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael, and any questions that you might have that came out of that work session, he would be happy to address.
Can I ask a quick question just before Michael gets started? Michael, could you say, like, that's great experience, but you have a couple different hats. Could you say who you are speaking on behalf of, or if you're speaking just as a private citizen? Thanks.
Sure. I'm in a unique position that I represent private developers, but I also help them negotiate partnerships with local communities. So it's a really great position to be in, to formally represent a private developer, but also to be seen as somebody who's speaking for the voice of the community, which is in fact why they hired me. So I've been a consultant hired by the original landowner, Steve Smith in Evergreen, as well as from LDG Development, who is the master developer who is going to acquire the land originally.
Okay, so you're a consultant to both Steve Smith and LDG at this point?
That's right.
Okay,
and their
you.
charge for me was to figure out a plan that to create a partnership with the local community to develop workforce housing, specifically 80 to 120% AMI, that's kind of my sweet spot. And so to to essentially bring the parties together to create a public-private partnership of some kind, which these grants refer to.
Okay, great, thank you.
Of course. The ask today is that there are 2 grants that are available currently that there are LOIs due, non-binding LOIs due at the end of this week and then Monday. So my ask would be to approve to submit these non-binding LOIs. I'll speak to each of them at a high level, and then I'll let you dig into the level of detail that you'd like. One of them is an infrastructure grant that's from the Strong Communities Initiative. This is actually the last of the 1304 funding from ARPA, and it's a one-time infrastructure grant for communities that have shovel-ready projects that have some kind of transit-oriented element to them. And the second is the first program that's come from the new Prop 123, which was the citizen initiative that was passed last year, that will create $300 million of annual funding for affordable and workforce housing in the state of Colorado. We're really blessed. There aren't any other states that have anything like that. And the first program available is a land banking grant that is only available to cities, counties, and housing authorities to acquire private land to bank that for future affordable and workforce development. And so these 2 grants together, both can only be applied for by cities, counties, or housing authorities. And our thought was that the Gateway Village project, which is a 45-acre project north of town that is currently in the process of going through planning with County P&Z, that if Lake County was able to acquire that land with this grant funding, then it would actually be in control of its destiny in terms of banking that land for the future versus having it be, strictly in the hands of a private developer. There would still ultimately be a private developer involved, and there's a few ways that the county could decide to do that, which I'll probably save that detail for now. But essentially, this is putting that land in the control of the county for perpetuity and then keeping your options open in terms of how you want to develop that in the future. The infrastructure grant would be used for a wastewater treatment plant on the northwest corner of the property, which would provide wastewater treatment to the development itself, to Mountain Valley Estates, our neighbors to the north, which would solve a long-term environmental issue, and also would open up any future development in the qualified opportunity zone to the north could be served by that wastewater treatment plant. So I'll stop there in case it's too much information, and open to any questions that you have.
Just a quick, I do have questions, Michael, but just a quick clarification. You've been working with the community planning and development staff. This hasn't yet come to the planning commission. Just making that clear.
Yes, yeah, the private developers are in the process of talking with P&Z, but this would be an opportunity for the county to control that land without any funding out of your budget or ongoing liability. It's literally for land banking, but they are going to prioritize communities with shovel-ready projects. And so one of the benefits is that all of the development plans that the private developer has put in to date would go with that land and would be provided to the county to decide if you want to execute that plan or to consider other options.
Okay. Okay. Michael, I apologize. I don't think I saw, you had given a couple handouts at our work session with links to what is needed for the grant, or you had given physical handouts, or Jackie, I think, printed out maybe, or I think you brought these physical handouts. And it looked like there was links on info of what was needed for the letter of interest, and then the form, but I don't think that we ever received that in an electronic version to kind of dive deeper. And so I just wonder, do you have a draft of this letter? I have a lot of questions as to, I think we maybe probably would like community planning and development to work closely with you, kind of outlining what the county's intentions would be. We certainly have a lot to work through after submitting a letter of interest on that. I also am not, it seems that maybe if we do decide to participate in this and submit this, I'm curious what the content will be, because I don't quite understand the relationship and or intentions of the landowner versus the developer that has worked with CPD, or a new developer, or what our requirements would be as the county, as a new owner, to kind of put that out to bid or for procurement. So I know when we think of LDG and the Gateway project, knowing that any updates that staff had given the board, we think about a project that may have looked like a 75% affordable housing and workforce housing to meet state AMI rules and restrictions, and I just want to be sure. In here it says that what's required is to meet a 50%, but I don't know what to rely on as far as like the proposal of who would be developing that. And again, though, I guess those are maybe agreements and things to work out, given the timeline after the fact of this letter, given the time frame that we have to work with the 18th and the 21st being a deadline. But I would love to kind of maybe revisit that and see if anybody has any more questions from our last conversation with you. Do you have a response to any of that? Sorry, I didn't quite pause to give you a break to respond there.
Sure, let me pre-apologize with the fire drill. The LOIs were just released 2 weeks ago with these short deadlines, which is we're really blessed to have all of these funding opportunities. And then also it kind of creates a fire drill for us. The fact that it's just a non-binding LOI, I think is the only thing that makes it feasible. Of course, we wouldn't have time to submit a full application by then, because of course we need to answer all of those questions that you just asked. But to clarify on the role of the developer, LDG was planning to be the master developer, and this property is intended to have apartments that would be workforce housing, specifically for folks, our Lake County residents, the 80% who commute to one of the ski resorts for work, with a new bus stop on the highway, and the first buildings would be oriented towards that workforce. There's also plans for sale townhomes that would be affordably priced, that would be that Chafee Housing Trust has been interested in developing, although there's an interesting role that the Housing Authority could play as well in acting as that community land trust if you didn't want to work with someone from an outside county. And so LDG was planning to act as the master developer, but they themselves were going to go find a multifamily developer, townhome developer. With this grant opportunity, it would eliminate the need for that master developer, and it would eliminate any profits that a master developer would take, which of course impact the affordability of the project. So without that master developer being in there, the county itself would be able to execute either grants to a for sale developer or a master lease with an apartment developer. We have those development options lined up for you, or you could decide to bank the land and take more time to decide what to do with it. So that was one of the exciting things about this, was the thought of this land being owned by the county in perpetuity. And so LDG has blessed this approach. They understand that if they didn't need to be involved, that would be able to drive lower affordability levels. And then your question about the AMI requirements, this is again a case of the state building a plane while they're flying it, which I think they will admit to. In fact, Department of Housing after this is taking a 3-month break from taking any applications at all, as they kind of get their ducks in a row internally. And so the initial guidance was that it was going to need to focus on 60% AMI, which is true low income affordability. However, no projects in the mountains can possibly pencil if there are infrastructure costs. It is impossible, and this is just from thousands of hours of looking at these. You can't make a project in Colorado, in our rural communities, pencil at 60% AMI if it's a large land development. And so they've gotten significant pushback from folks like me saying that this doesn't help our rural communities. And so I had a conversation with them last week where they said that any community can justify the AMI limits that they want, as long as that they're able to justify that need. So we don't have that in writing or something official that I can share with you yet. And I can just share that they've heard many people complain about those AMIs eliminating workforce housing, and they're planning to make those policies flexible depending on the need of a particular county, especially because part of our project is a transit-oriented project serving folks who commute to the ski community, to the resort communities. I think I answered most of your questions. If not, please let me know. And then I forwarded the document summaries to Jackie because I didn't have your email addresses, and she'll help disseminate that to you.
Can I jump in?
Yes, please, Ian.
So, Michael and board, if you don't mind, I would just suggest that these non-binding letters of interest with this very quick time frame is, I think, what we need to consider if the board has an interest in participating in those. And then I would encourage, Michael, a time that you, Jackie, and I could sit down. I want to remind everyone that, we do have a preliminary submittal from Gateway that has a completeness review out on it. And so in making sure that, this is a significant change, and this is the first time that I've heard that, this public-private partnership in this way is being considered. And so we do have a pending entitlement application sketch plan that doesn't include any of this kind of information. Just represents, I guess, the Department of Housing loan. I thought that was a grant when you and I talked, but I guess it's actually a loan for the acquisition of the property. So I think that this is just a lot of new information. This is the first time I've become aware of it, and so I would love to help provide the board with some more information, also preserve the entitlement process depending on the outcome of where the decisions are. And so happy to work with you directly, Michael, too, and support the board how they need to. But I think that we need to make sure that CPD comes in to kind of provide some support on both sides, support to your request as well as to the board, and so that we can also ensure the entitlement process is kept on track, whichever direction I guess this is going to go, because this is really big news given what's been submitted. So just trying to kind of jump in and say I appreciate the urgency with the request to the board, and just want to make sure that we're providing them with good information, and that we all have the same information. Because I just became aware yesterday that you were going to present this ask to the board, and so hopefully you and I can kind of debrief too, and I continue to be supportive to the board in their decision making in the next little bit, because it's a pretty big ask. And whereas we want to just make sure that we've considered all exactly what the intent is and what the obligation of the county would be in moving forward in being supportive of this. I think there's lots of good opportunity, and we certainly would support the board, want to be able to be supportive and of service to the board and to you in making these quick turnarounds on the decision making.
And thank you for that. And I hope you'll forgive me for not reaching out to you directly. It's been just a sprint to the finish line to pull this together. And I agree with everything that you said. I think the thought process is that these grants are going to be fairly competitive. So LDG is still continuing with Plan A. And then this is now a plan B as another option. And if we're fortunate enough to have both opportunities, then we'd really have some, some optionality to decide on the best path. But I wanted you to know that LDG is still continuing with the current plan. And in fact, the progress that they've made with you, it will actually help this grant application because it makes the project closer to shovel ready versus other communities that will just be submitting grant applications for raw land. But I absolutely agree with everything you said.
I'd just like to say, I mean, on the surface, it's an exciting opportunity because as many of us in this room understand, we don't have authority over a lot of the different aspects of infrastructure that allow us to create incentives. I think it's yeah, at face value, seems super exciting and a great opportunity to be able to kind of help those projects pencil out in that way. But I think it seems like everybody shares that kind of the concern about the details and how that actually plays out. I know I will share the conversations that I've had with Jackie, and I'm sure she's had similar ones with my fellow commissioners, learning about this and saying, oh, can we apply this to different properties that we've been pursuing, or different projects, or other outlying neighborhoods that we know also have infrastructure needs. Should we be doing this on, is it the right thing to do this on behalf of this request without maybe putting out a request for proposals or qualifications of other partners? All of those conversations have led to, the land that we have does not seem as shovel ready because we don't have the planning and the concepts and kind of engineering on some of that. So those, thinking through those things, at least for me, kind of landed me in a place of, okay, we're not foregoing an opportunity to further our own projects, maybe, unless we have a new thought, Jackie, or some other information that's come to light, and then some other bigger infrastructure projects of other outlying communities are, they are their own jurisdiction and local government, so they actually are eligible to apply for some of that funding on their own. I just wanted to kind of share that we really have kind of thought about, maybe not everything, but we have been looking at this more critically too, in kind of jumping into at least the letter of interest as a partnership.
I think that's a good point, and I think there's two different dynamics, which is the infrastructure grant is a one-time only. That this is the last of those, again, 1304 funds. So that will be, I think, and I brought this to your attention knowing that you might think about other projects that might be a better fit, on a countywide level. And I want to get funding for Lake County. So if you did decide to apply to a different project, again, I would be on board to help, even if it wasn't for Gateway Village, because I want to get state funding into our coffers. The land banking grant, interestingly, is going to recur, and this is a $30 million of the $300 million that every year will be available, and that the city, the county, and the housing authority can actually submit their own applications at the same time. Now, unlikely that one would win, or that multiple would win from the same community, at least initially, but this land banking grant is going to continue to be an opportunity in perpetuity. And you're absolutely right to be thinking of every possible project in the city and county that could be land banked, either for now or for the next round, which would be in 2024.
Yeah. Jackie, any comments or anything to add, kind of just for public information on our thought process together, or your conversations with the other commissioners on this?
No, I think that it's an exciting opportunity. It's unfortunate that turnaround time is immediate. It's hard to really, there's a lot to it, and it's hard to kind of figure things out. We did work, Michael and I worked together to opt in, and then for the city and also for the county.
That's what Prop 123.
And so that's that's what this is falling under, for Prop 123. And then we had a conversation with Connor Everson with DOLA last week, and we can't apply together. We had to do the IGA. So that we can count each other's affordable housing builds over the next 3 years, but we had to apply separately, so that has since been done. I've reached out to him to make sure that because they haven't updated their website in a month since July 5th, which is a little frustrating. But we need that's the first step for being able to even apply for any of this. But it's exciting, there's a lot of money, and I would agree. I loved your analogy of building a plane while flying. It seems like new information is coming out constantly on this, and it's a little bit hard to keep up and follow, so.
And Jackie, you were actually the first person that's talked to DOH that got them to confirm that they'll be flexible on the AMIs from our call on Friday, so you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah, they said nobody's ever requested that, which is really hard to understand and believe.
Really?
So
Nobody could figure out who to ask.
Right.
That there's a process for it, and so I'm working on other projects around the state, and nobody could figure out who to ask, but Jackie figured it out.
Nice. Well, I'm just always baffled.
And I'm not telling anybody else
Ah.
until this round is over.
So when is the next round of funding available for this then?
So for the land banking grant, they're gonna make, so if the communities are gonna submit LOIs, and then by early October, they're supposed to have made a determination about who can submit formal applications, by which time I promise we'll have worked way far ahead to share any details and think through those nuances. So we'll have a period of time to submit the formal application. The LOI only requires just a narrative essentially, and is fairly easy to fill out. Formal applications will be invited to be submitted in October, and then funding awards in January. And then they said the next round of funding will open up in January, although sometimes the Department of Housing has run a month or two late on their timelines.
Michael,
at least.
Yeah. Michael, do you have a drafted language for this letter? And you do?
Yes.
Okay. Also, I guess I would just kind of check in with CPD staff and Jackie, because I think we need some dedicated time in the next 3 days to review that and make sure we could submit a competitive letter. I mean, I think we would want to include as much detail, but also with as much vagueness as possible, right? Like, we have potential partners, and we have potential partners with X level of planning done, or, I mean, I'm just not sure how we word that.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, Michael, in the work session, you noted that the LOIs had certain limits as to the number of words or something like that, so it can't go into but so much detail, so the notion of making, you know, as I like to call it, a little bit more flexibility in the language you use is probably a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Chris. Yes, that's right. And what I've been told, again, informally, is that everyone who fills out the form correctly will be invited to submit an application.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, I was gonna say I don't, I do think that there's a little more due diligence you have to do on this, but if the letter of intent is not binding, I feel like it's important, at least for me as one commissioner, to have some flexibility and to find our way out of that if it's not something that we feel like we can dedicate resources to, one, or if it's gonna cause an additional burden in CPD or housing, and definitely don't want to lose track of the projects that we have going on right now in
Yeah.
in that department in
Yeah.
particular. So I think as long as it's not binding and we can use that as a way to get us some more time to pull some of those more intricate pieces out of the details as we go through that process, I'm okay with that. I don't feel like we are in a place right now where we should bind ourselves to anything without more of those details.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, this could mean additional staff just to manage this project for the county, depending on
Totally.
how, right? It could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in engineering planning. I mean, it could, if we aren't able to use existing plans and designs. There are a lot of question marks on this, and it's not as simple as just agreeing to be a partner. Hopefully it's more simple than complicated, but.
Well, I was gonna say to that point, I mean, that's all true, and we need to be ready for that. That's true whether we build on other parcels or, I mean, right, like any building of new affordable housing is gonna require all the things you just said. And like, I
Absolutely,
mean, this
yeah.
project isn't creating, well, I mean, every project has its own unique complications of funding streams and everything. But like, to me, that just speaks to, as we get more serious about housing, that we need to have that capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
In the county and the housing authority and CPD.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'd like to collect our comments about not derailing any existing projects and knowing that we have to make those investments already.
Yeah.
With the size of the project that is 10 to 20 units alone. Yeah, if I could maybe like broadly summarize that, in that we don't, like, we don't necessarily want to supplant that progress or that project and resources. So it's going to be a continuing conversation with you, Michael, and Jackie to figure out how we can prioritize and address all those demands.
Right, I would just say that the roles and responsibilities would really need to be understood and defined, especially when we're contemplating the biggest subdivision potentially Lake County has ever processed, reviewed, or managed. So
in Gateway,
Yeah.
in Gateway explicitly, right?
Yeah.
So really understanding the roles and responsibilities and what comes along with that. You know, certainly there's lots of models out there, so we just want some time to be able to vet that and have a greater understanding of what those roles and responsibilities would be moving forward, but happy to work with the board in the next few days for a letter of interest that would at least hold that opportunity open, and then we can dive deeper into that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was just gonna reiterate is, you know, you submit the LOI, you have these internal communications about what that really will look like if it proceeds. And then if you're invited to apply and you make the decision, it doesn't really pencil for Lake County either, you don't have to apply.
Yeah.
No obligation anywhere.
Right.
The one other thing that I'll share that's just really exciting, and I'm trying not to provide too much information because I know this is so complex, but so an option that you might have is, as you might know, the Breckenridge Fading West project that was recently, that's getting near completion. Breckenridge actually developed that themselves with Fading West and a general contractor without a master developer. And of course, to your point earlier, that creates some management burden and some cost, but then that community's in complete control of its destiny and then doesn't have a master developer involved. There's another option, however, where you give up some of that control, but then there's no cost whatsoever to the county, which is a master lease to a private developer who would come in and they have the full rights of development as if they own the land, but it drives a deeper affordability level because they don't have to purchase the land. And that lease actually would create income potentially for the housing authority. In fact, there's 2 or 3 ways that housing authorities around the state generate income from these kinds of arrangements. including lease fees, asking for a percentage of any future income, and asking for a percentage of development fees. And I will summarize that information for you, and we can provide case studies with a few other counties and how they've approached that. But essentially, you'd have two options: is one, more control, but then also more resources to be brought to bear, versus a master lease where there's little expense or resource and income generation opportunities. That's part of why this is so exciting, is that income generation for the housing authority or for the community.
Okay. All right, so I'm wondering about entertaining a motion to, well, does CPD and Jackie do you have the capacity to give this some attention? Michael, if you have something drafted, I'm imagining a process of you sharing some language with us, staff reviewing and sharing with commissioners individually. Maybe we could entertain a motion that directs staff to do that. And I mean, I would say either in the motion or it needs to be clear, like explicitly understood. It'd be nice to have this to review sooner than later, in the next day or so, for that 18th deadline for submittal, so that we can work on revisions and comments before the deadline, at least for the infrastructure piece. And then the 21st is that land banking piece. I don't know if both of those letters might look very similar, but it'd be great to kind of assign a request of staff, assuming that there is some time, to do that.
How soon can Michael have those? Can you have those to us today?
Yes, they're already written.
Okay, great. Well then, presuming that we'd get those today,
and my apologies for not having it to you before this meeting. It's been a sprint.
I just want to set out a clear process of like all of staff being able to communicate with all three board members, not having seen the language in there now, but wanting perhaps to support and move forward. Making a motion to direct staff to engage with Michael and create this letter and work with us individually to be sure we're all comfortable with the language included in that for submittal.
Yeah, if we can get the letter and then we can put it on the SharePoint or whatever our share platform is, and then we can just have a conversation with each of you. Jackie and I could together, we could just kind of put our resources together and just do a check-in with each of you before we'll say we're ready.
Okay.
That'll give us some time to just even think through this a little bit.
Okay. Okay.
But certainly thank you, Michael, for bringing the opportunity forward for consideration.
Thank you for the opportunity to present this, and again, I wouldn't create this fire drill if it wasn't such an amazing opportunity. So thank you for being willing to consider it under short notice.
Sarah, can I just make sure I understood your point? I mean, which I think I agree with that. I mean, so with the actual motion you're suggesting specified that, I mean, it would almost be like the equivalent of like pending legal review, except it would be pending individual review by the three commissioners.
Yeah.
And do we need to say in a motion like that? I mean, is it sort of, I was gonna say acquiescence, but that's a terrible word to use. I mean, individual approval from each of us on those drafts, or
if that's the approach you take, I don't think it's ready then for approval. Pending time, because not knowing what you're approving at this stage would be difficult. Most in past, usually when I say something like recommended approval pending final legal, we have the document that's been reviewed at least at some level by staff, and we might be tweaking the language, but at this point in time, we don't have anything for you to review. And my concern is trying to approve something that hasn't been presented at some level publicly might be an issue.
So I think, thank you, I think that's what I was getting at, so, I mean, I'm sorry, this may be said and I missed it, but what is the actual submission deadline?
The 18th for the infrastructure and
Okay.
the 21st for the
Okay, so,
banking.
so we have time to schedule a quick special meeting, like, we can do everything you just said. We can like direct staff to do everything you just said, but there's no actual motion
And then do
to
a quick
approve,
special
and then we do a
meeting
quick special
Friday,
meeting, yeah.
if that works. No, it doesn't.
I don't have to be here for the special meeting and I can work with Jackie before that.
Yeah, or another, I mean, we could aim for whatever works best for folks.
Or
Yeah, I
Thursday,
mean,
you have a
some,
work session Thursday, I believe.
We have a work session Thursday
Oh.
morning.
Yeah.
yeah.
So you could do it.
We could go into, if things would be ready,
Yeah, just-
either before or after that. Or in the afternoon, potentially.
You're
yeah.
talking about this week?
Yeah.
There is no work
There's
session.
no work session.
There isn't?
Oh,
No,
There is not.
I think you
Okay.
have a recurring calendar blackout on your calendar,
okay.
cause I only see it for you.
Could we do, I mean, Friday? I'm sorry, I don't know what's calendar pulled up.
I mean, we do have time on Thursday at like 11. Or at 10.
10 looks better across you all's schedule. 9 AM looks even better from 9 to 9:30.
Okay.
Is that Thursday?
That is correct.
One day.
No, I was gonna say Friday. What does Friday look like? Might be, since it-
Friday is pretty packed, kind of.
So it could be like 8:30 Friday morning, or if you believe in cool things, like 3 PM on Friday.
Or later on Thursday than in the morning.
Thursday, y'all's afternoons fill up, it looks like.
Okay.
So it
After
depends.
3:30 Thursday?
I can't do that, sorry,
So Friday. Yeah, we just have to, it is, I presume it's an electronic submission? Michael?
Yes.
So we just have to be at the full trigger during normal state hours, I presume, and submit it.
So let's go with 8:30 on Friday morning?
no, it's
No.
fire management board on Friday, do you mean Thursday?
No. What time Friday works for you?
After 10? Or at 7:30?
No.
Yeah, so I was gonna.
So after 10 on Friday, I can do from 10 to 12. That works for me. So we can just do it at 10 on Friday if that works.
After 12:30, we would care for Tim's presence.
That's fine. How about 10:30
10:30?
On what day?
Friday?
Friday? Does that leave enough room for management?
Yeah,
Or would you prefer 10?
I think 10:30 is probably safer, just,
Okay. And,
Special meeting?
yep, invite Jackie and Ann,
Yep, and Michael,
Michael Irwin.
Lady. Jackie can forward that.
Sounds good.
Okay, then Michael will have, everybody work to prepare that, for us to comment on and work with staff between now and Friday morning, and Friday morning we'll do a, plan to formally, consider the letter.
okay.
Fantastic. Thank you for your consideration. We will make it worth your while.
All right. Any other discussion on that agenda item?
No, none for me.
Let's see, we did the 2 agenda items in the 1 conversation. So our next is ratification of a contract to buy and sell real estate for the property located at 619 Elm Street.
We take a quick
What
break,
is the,
2 hours in.
I'm so
5
sorry,
minutes, yeah.
that's the Strong Communities Grant?
Well, one of them, yeah, did 2 of them. He kind of talked about both of them at the same time.
Grant intentions about the adoption of a transformable practices, programs, and policies. I thought one was an infrastructure grant, that sounds like a planning grant. I'm sorry.
It's all under Prop 123, there's land banking component and then strong communities, all under the same
But-
umbrella.
The strong community, so I heard an
You want a 5-minute
infrastructure
break or
grant and an
2 minutes?
acquisition grant, but this is a grant
Okay.
intended to incentivize
2-minute
the
break?
adoption
Okay.
of transformational.
We'll be back at 1:03.
Practices.
Just tell the folks on Zoom, we're gonna take just a few minute, break.
Hey, Michael, just real quick, while they're taking a
Sure.
break, can I ask an informational question? So on the description here of the Strong Communities Grant, it says a grant intended to incentivize the adoption of transformational practices, programs and policies that support sustainable development patterns and affordable housing into the future. That sounds like a planning grant. Is that the definition of the Strong Communities Grant? But you're talking about an acquisition grant and an infrastructure grant.
Yeah, the Strong Communities Grant is an infrastructure grant up to $4 million with a 20% match. I believe there might be a separate planning grant, but if you've been through IHOI, IHOP, which you have, then that wouldn't be incrementally valuable. So it's the infrastructure grant that we're talking about.
Okay.
And in fact, your progress with Michael Yerman on IHOP and IHOI will actually give us more points in the scoring for the grant. So had you not done all that hard work, then we wouldn't really be competitive. So that process that you went through will directly benefit this process.
Right. I just wanted to make sure we weren't applying for a planning grant.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna give us just a minute here. Are you good?
Mm-hmm. All right, we are back. Okay, next on our agenda, and we have a bit left. We have the ratification of the contract to buy and sell real estate for the property located at 619 Elm Street in Leadville, Colorado. We have had a number of work sessions and executive sessions on just housing approaches and programs and thoughts to preserve housing stock in the community, both as a board individually and with partners and as participants in the Regional Housing Authority. Jackie, would you, as our housing director and also the person we've chosen to engage with to help guide us through this process for procuring or contracting to buy this property, would you kind of give us a status update and an overview of where we are at this point?
So on Monday, August 7th, Lake County made an offer on a 5-unit apartment house located at 619 Elm Street in Leadville, Colorado. And as part of a larger strategy to preserve housing in our community, the seller has accepted that offer on Tuesday, the 8th. We're looking to ratify that today. The scheduled close for this property is October 18th. The county will have this property inspected, appraised, surveyed over the next few weeks. We've been offered a supplemental grant from DOLA in the amount of $500,000 to go towards this purchase. They had someone drop out of the incentives grant, unable to complete their commitment, and so that money is split between our community and another community. DOLA was really appreciative of the fact that there was interest to try and secure affordable housing. The applicant that dropped out was doing a similar venture and was not able to perform on that. So this is very exciting to be given that extra funding. The additional funding for this project is coming from the county's pool of ARPA funding that we dedicated to housing across the board and different to promote preserving housing in addition to other programming through DHS. So there will be no general fund commitment to this purchase at this time, which is exciting. And we have ordered, we're having the inspection tomorrow. The appraisal has been ordered, the survey has been ordered, and we're just working through the deadlines on the contract.
If I could just add all the, as you say, we're working through the deadlines on the contract. There's still security in the contract and stopgaps for, should there be a huge red flag or concerns as the buyer, we have opportunity to terminate that contract. And I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure if necessarily ratifying is the right word, because I think we've really taken proper process through executive sessions and coming out of those, directing myself as chair to work with Jackie to sign the documents that we've reviewed together in those meetings. So Tracy, you have a comment?
Well, I was just gonna say, I just would recommend, since the specifics of the contract weren't in the public notices previously, that is what today is for, to essentially provide to the public the specifics as to the property and what the status is and that type of thing. So
Thank you.
it's to ratify the terms of the contract, if you will.
Great, okay, thank you.
So the purchase price is $872,625. And again, as mentioned earlier, we do have many outs, and the Colorado contract is designed to protect the buyer and the buyer's earnest money. And so we put down earnest money in the amount of $25,000, and that is being held with the title company. And as we pursue the inspection and the appraisal and the survey, we have, again, all these opportunities that if something comes up, as I was mentioning, we have the opportunity to terminate the contract. I did want to commend the county on pursuing this opportunity. One of the things that I did not mention a minute ago was that there were investors looking at this property. So it's exciting to not have the property go to an investor who would potentially displace residents, because of course that's not our intention. Our intention is to maintain affordable housing within the community. So I commend you all for your forward thinking on that and doing something now, as the building of units is a time-consuming process and doesn't impact our community immediately, and this certainly does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, as we've all discussed across different tables, watching our huge multifamily units be purchased by investors and experiencing complaints and the challenges of those residents either getting kicked out and not having a lot of leverage to manage or combat that. You know, I think we've mentioned a couple different times, it'd be great to try to preserve that housing stock and what's left in especially higher density units.
Yeah, just, I think, just to add to that, you know, one of the big takeaways from this is that we don't have general fund dollars going into this purchase, and that we're leveraging the ARPA funds to the highest level of what they are expected to be used for, which was really like one-time investment or programming, but not something that, you know, you create a new department and then have to figure out how to fund that in perpetuity. And so I think I'm really thankful that we held on to those ARPA dollars to find an opportunity to leverage them as much as we could. And so this is just one of those success stories from that investment into our community. And so I think just to make sure that that is clear, that we're, you know, we have been very diligent in looking for an opportunity to match those dollars towards. And so I am really excited for that. I don't know if you're taking any comments.
No. Also, just to add, I mean, we still have a lot of opportunity of what to do with the property.
Yeah.
Our first priority is to maintain the shelter and housing for the folks there. As those folks may move out, we would improve on the property, and we certainly want to explore deed restricting the property, and if everything goes to hell, we can sell the property after we deed restrict it, so.
And the deed restriction will be likely mandate of the DOLA funds. So we'll take care of that when we acquire the property.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I could just add, it's not even necessarily things go to hell, that we would sell the property with deed restrictions. That was a little, yeah, but even, I don't think that's an emergency, you know, action. That could be a deliberate act to test the idea of whether there is any appetite for ownership of deed restricted properties, whether they go into a long-term rental market or for pure ownership. Because I think, something we've talked about in previous work sessions is trying to figure out what is that kind of subsidy gap between market rate stuff and deed restricted stuff, you know, whatever the guidelines are of any particular deed restriction, you know, and I still am really interested in like trying to find out what that number is, because I think that's almost like a critical factor in understanding what our sort of like 5 and 10 year housing strategy cost is going to be. Because if it's like 100K per unit, or if it's like 400K per unit, like that's in a way, well, I mean, there's lots of important things, but like we just need to know what that gap is and if there's even any appetite out there.
Yeah. Gives us a place to kind of exercise and pilot all these ideas.
Yeah, and I think from, you know, with our limited funding in hand right now, you know, if we, you know, even knowing that we would take a hit for that subsidy gap, it's not a loss. I mean, it's an investment in perpetuity funding. If we can then get, you know, some significant portion of this investment we're making back in, that becomes like somewhat of a revolving fund that we can do more with, you know, and keep getting more units place, so. Start with a pontification.
That's great. All right. Any other discussion or action needed on 619 Elm? Chris?
No.
No? Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Jackie. Next we have discussion and consideration of the coroner department's unbudgeted expense of $1,860 for a subscription to pager duty. We have the lead here as our county attorney. Go ahead,
Yes.
Chris.
This is unfortunately one of those situations where Chief Deputy Coroner Caleb Bader signed up for a free trial with pager duty back in either February or March of 2022. And that expired, when it expired, due to the price structure, which they thought was very good, both Caleb and Alexander Craig, the coroner, were under the impression that Caleb could sign off on the contract, which he did. But then when it was submitted for payment, it was refused because it wasn't a properly authorized contract. So Caleb went back to pager duty and asked them to provide a new contract for consideration and review and approval by y'all, and they refused to do that. Well, this kind of, I understand, lingered, and it, I think, came to my attention in June or so of this year, and by that time, it had actually, the initial term had expired, because it was a year running from April 22 to April 23.
So we're not currently using it now?
No, it hasn't been used at all, to my understanding, since the issue came up after the trial. So they didn't actually use the services. However, based on the terms of the contract that were signed and the fact that it wasn't contested during the term there, I don't see a basis for us to be able to refuse payment at this time. So that's why the request has come forward. It wasn't budgeted by the coroner's office, so it would be an unbudgeted expense.
So approving this to kind of wrap up the engagement, there's no ongoing engagement with.
Well, they keep demanding payment, the pager duty does, so it's what it is, but they aren't, no,
Or
there's no use.
we're not using, they're not asking us to continue subscription.
No, it was just that 1-year term, it didn't renew, and so right now, they could ask for penalties and stuff like that under the terms of the contract was signed, which of course, by the way, I never saw either, so they are not asking for that at this point, they just want us to pay the $1,800 and some as the original subscription amount.
Okay. That's unfortunate, and some listening might scoff at $1,860, but we've been in the same situation in years past, summing $25,000+ or $268,000 contracts that we did not know about and became obligated to as a county. So I appreciate you flagging this, Chris and Tim, and bringing it to us, no matter what the amount, because we could get, we've been
It's one of those things where we could try to contest it based on lack of authority and the time and expense for that, and unfortunately, the grant does have an attorney's fees provision, so if the court says, sorry, you didn't do that within the period of time that you should have to contest that it wasn't authorized, we'd owe them that plus their attorney's fees and costs for pursuing the judgment.
Yeah.
And we can remind the coroner's office that Everbridge platform has these on-call capabilities.
Yeah.
They can create their own group.
Yeah.
Within Everbridge.
Yes.
Can we schedule a follow-up with the coroner's office to request a budget hearing and proper procedure work session of how you use our financial management system and procurement policy?
I think we've been trying for 2 months.
To get that scheduled.
So yes.
Okay. I just, if that communication needs to come direct from one of us, please let us know, and we can maybe ask Sarah to send something as the chair and implore the importance of that follow-up conversation with that department in particular.
Yep.
Yep.
Because I think that there's a few more things that also need to be addressed there.
No, I can do that.
Okay.
I will do that.
All right, well, I'll make a motion, that we approve and ratify, right, Chris, like ratify?
Well, just,
or-
Approve the
just approve
payment.
payment,
Just
just
approve
approve the payment
okay.
for the contract, which is now expired.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the payment for the, contract to, and subscription to PagerDuty of $1,860, for unbudgeted expenses in the coroner's office.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Next, discussion consideration for election intergovernmental agreements, IGAs, with Colorado Mountain College, Lake County School District, and the city of Leadville. And this is also led by County Attorney Chris Floyd.
Yes, thank you very much. At this point in time, I believe we have received the all good, back from Colorado Mountain College and Lake County School District in regards to the proposed IGA that was sent to them for the coordinated election, this November. And for, I think the school district has their board meeting to approve it this week. And so we expect to get the signed version back from them. CMC, I'm not exactly sure what their process, I received an email from their attorney this week, or end of last week, saying yes, no issues with it, so we expect to get that in good form. These need to be in place by the end of this month. Unfortunately, yesterday, I received a marked up version back from the city, with some, what I consider to be somewhat substantive changes, that I don't have material issues with, but because, Clerk Lauritsen is not available to review them, I'm not comfortable recommending that we approve it without her review. So that's one I think we would need to carry over and perhaps schedule for a special meeting before the end of the month in order to approve that. Understand from City Administrator Lori Simonson that it is on City Council's agenda for tonight for approval with the changes they requested. And I've suggested to her that perhaps she can ask for the same thing I do in terms of approval pending final legal review of those changes, so that we have an opportunity to have Ms. Lauritsen review them before it's presented to y'all for approval as well. So
What, I might be missing it, and I don't see that draft, but what are some of the I mean, isn't this kind of like a standard engagement
yes.
for providing election services?
Yes, it is, but yes, they have come back with, and I think my concern, I don't see any legal issues with the changes they're requesting, but they do require the clerk's office to take additional steps and do additional things, and I don't want to volunteer Tracy or Ms. Lauritsen for that without her reviewing it and saying, oh, sure, we'll do that anyway, or yes, we'll do it.
Okay, Cindy, any message from the
No.
clerk as to whether
No, I haven't, I mean,
was
she
a part of
doesn't
that
have
conversation from the city
her
or not?
phone with her, so I don't know.
She has not seen it. And
Okay.
they have not had any communications with her, to my knowledge.
Okay.
It's all been between me and the city.
Yeah, okay.
And this was provided to them probably a good month and a half or more ago.
Okay,
And so we just got it back yesterday.
all right.
So
Well, then
Apologize for
what is the deadline? Or just by the end of the month?
Tracy said it needed to be in place by the end of the month.
Okay.
So my expectation is as soon as she gets back next week, I'll put my head together with hers and we'll look at them and see if she has any heartburn with the changes. And if not, then I think we just schedule it for a special meeting to be approved
Okay.
for that one. Otherwise, the other two should be good to go.
Okay, so we can make a motion with Colorado Mountain College and Lake County School District.
Yeah, to approve those two, and then, if you want, you could approve the one for the city of Leadville pending further review by the clerk and recorder and county attorney. It's up to you, or my suggestion would be, not knowing how Tracy might respond, perhaps leave that one off for now.
Well, I kind of would like to have her review those changes if they're substantial.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'll make a motion that we approve the intergovernmental agreements for elections with Colorado Mountain College and Lake County School District.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
None for me, thank you.
None for me.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we'll table that IGA with the city.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. And then the next one, also, Chris, discussion and consideration of the IGA for Proposition 123, Colorado Affordable Housing Financing Fund with the city of Leadville.
I'm sorry, Jackie's not here either.
okay.
So essentially, that is another one that I just received back from the city with their comments and such, and it's my understanding, I believe that's on their agenda for tonight as well.
I think the IGA just addressed the city and the county agreeing to collaborate and use the metrics that the state's putting forth for measuring additional units based on the ratio of your population and the formula that they apply to us, and saying that if the city develops, or if, like, our project is in the city, and if the city develops these units that meets our threshold, then that will count for both.
You can, to collaborate on how the work is done. So I went over the requested changes with Lori Simonson yesterday, and she agreed to some revisions that I asked for. So my understanding is it is going to be presented to them with, again, the request for final legal review, as long as no other changes beyond what we talked about yesterday are required by city council, then I would ask the same for y'all to approve pending final legal review for what city council approves.
Okay, okay.
So
that seems pretty low, or inconsequential, all right. Sorry, go ahead.
I was wondering if you're waiting for a
Yes.
motion.
All right.
So I move that we approve the IGA for Proposition 123, Colorado Affordable Housing Financing Fund with the city of Leadville, pending legal review of any revisions that the city of Leadville proposes at their meeting tonight.
yes, I think it is on the agenda for tonight.
Jackie's
Alright,
back.
I'll second that.
No, I think, because this is kind of a pro forma thing, I'm sorry to interrupt there, in that Jackie's already opted in for both the city and the county, so it's there, this is just kind of putting.
This is for us internally, right?
For the, that's
DOLA
the Prop
doesn't,
123 IGA.
the state is not really super concerned about this agreement.
There was no place to even upload it. They are aware that we have done it because we've talked about it a lot. The city will be doing what you are doing right now with this, approving it tonight. The benefit of this was to be able to count each other's affordable housing. So, for example, if a project were to happen in the county, the city could count units towards their affordable housing baseline over the next 3 years to increase by 3% per year.
Okay.
9% over the total, and vice versa for the county for any city projects.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I left early.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
And that was all I was gonna ask you to tell them essentially that you, on that part, so I think we'll be good to go.
Great. Any further discussion?
None
No,
for me.
none for me.
Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 All right, 2 left. Discussion and consideration of temporary use permit for Excel Energy to have a storage yard and helicopter landing site on industrial mining zone land adjacent to Leadville city limits, north of East 12th Street. This operation is in support of Excel's ongoing work replacing electrical transmission towers in Lake County. Bryce Ehrlich is here as our deputy community planning and development. Deputy Director of Community Planning and Development. Go ahead, Bryce.
Thank you, board. I have just some of the basics that I'm gonna give you, and I think Ann has maybe some things to follow up with after I'm done. But we wanted to bring this to your attention just because this operation might have some impacts on residents, right? It's gonna be noticeable, and wanted you to be aware of it as well, just because you might be fielding questions about it. So just everyone being aware of this well in advance. A little bit of background is that Excel tried to apply for this earlier this summer, And we actually rejected the TUP application because they had no consideration of the Mineral Belt Trail, which is going to be in the direct flight path of the proposed helicopter flight path. So, the general location is kind of what we call Poverty Flats, or the flat area just beyond city limits. It's zoned industrial mining, but it was also kind of the area where we were discussing potential commercial industrial rezones just a couple of months ago. The helicopter flight path is going to be a quarter mile from the animal shelter, which I think is something to consider. And there's going to be a 100-foot buffer between the proposed construction yard and the helicopter operations and the Mineral Belt Trail. So they've tried to address the nearby impacts, but it'll still be pretty noticeable, right? Because the actual construction yard, they want to start this month. So they kind of came back to us and they're kind of on the deadline now where they need a decision on this pretty quick. But the construction yard use starting this fall will be materials deliveries in the order of 20 to 25 deliveries by semi-truck or other vehicle delivery over the course of 1 month. So starting later this month, going through late September, most likely. You might have just a few vehicles parked there per day or overnight, and then they're going to be storing some equipment and materials in the yard, you know, the cranes they need, and obviously getting the structure components for the new towers laid out and prepared for next spring, which is when they want to start in earnest on the actual tower reconstruction. That construction yard during construction will have an increased activity to approximately 10 to 15 vehicles going in and out all day, 10 vehicles leaving left overnight. Obviously, the equipment, material, and preparation will be done in the yard. And they're saying that, there will be approximately 10 to 15 vehicles arriving in the morning, 10 to 15 leaving in the late afternoon, and intermittent traffic throughout the day. So pretty general on that one. The most important part though, the construction yard is fairly straightforward. Obviously, there's going to be noticeable impacts on the residents, but the helicopter trips, which Xcel is saying, they need this helicopter use because there's just no feasible way to get this construction project done without the helicopter. And so the helicopter, they're anticipating to use it for 2 separate 5-day periods for the construction of the new towers, and then 2 5-day periods for the removal of the old structures after they're complete. So approximately 15 helicopter trips per day during flight operations times 20 days. We're looking at the order of almost, up to 300 flights proposed out of this temporary flight facility. Each flight will be 2 to 4 minutes in length, and their goal is to fly earlier in the day, so mostly in the morning, weather permitting, when the air is more stable and calm and better for helicopter operations apparently. That'll go through, we don't know the specific dates of the flights in those 5-day periods, but it'll be sometime in summer 2024. The helicopter flight path does go directly over the Mineral Belt Trail, and so one item that Xcel came back and addressed in their new TUP is they want to have trail flaggers along the trail, and they're actually proposing blocking the trail with those flaggers and doing brief trail closures, typically less than 5 minutes, when the helicopter is actually performing operations up and over the Mineral Belt Trail. That's the basics of it, right? I just think that Xcel is claiming that they have to have this. We were in our meetings with them, we were saying, is there any alternative to be further away from the city? And they're saying, no, this construction project is so extensive, they're actually replacing the entire line from Climax substation to Leadville substation. And they're saying that a big part of that is for wildfire resilience and climate resilience just moving forward. And so they're saying that they already have 2 other temporary yards. You might have noticed the one that they've been using up in the Birdseye Gulch area. And then they also have a yard down towards Lost Canyon that they're going to use. And they just say that because of the line that's so extensive, so many towers need to be replaced, they also need this 3rd location more central. And this is kind of the only location that really makes sense for them. It's an IM zoned, flat terrain, close to the tower. But yeah, I think 300 flights, we're gonna get some questions about that. It's gonna be extensive. Ann, did you have anything to follow up on?
I would just, that Bryce did a great job of all the, bringing all the relevant information forward. Just the temporary use permits are something that's an administrative review, but at any time that we want to bump those approvals up to the board because of the amount of impact or situational awareness that we want to create. So that's what we're bringing it to the board today to say, we would like to have your support in responding to this temporary use permit. Keep in mind that conditions could be put on the temporary use permit, and one that we talked about with the applicant when they came in, and we gave them quite a bit of pushback at first. We're just really hopeful that they could find a different location that would not have this kind of impact. Is that we wanted them to create some good messaging. I think that we are already in this situation with Sidewise where we are very not satisfied with the degree of communication and public outreach that they have done to alert our citizens. So I think that we have that additional concern going into this. So we asked them before they came back with this application to provide us with a method of which they were going to do public engagement, and we asked them to reach out to like the railroad, because think about the Leadville Railroad, they're going to be impacted during this flight as well, albeit that the flights are kind of minimized in the amount of time, which is really great. We also need to make sure that if we have any events on the Mineral Belt Trail, that we think about that. So we really wanted to, and so that, whereas they brought us some good information, the application is really completely silent on how they're gonna participate in helping our residents be aware of this work and be directly responsible for communication out to the community on what this work means. And, you know, I do certainly see that it's very important work that needs to be done. This old infrastructure needs to be updated, but it's gonna really come at an inconvenience to the community. And so we really wanted to create some good public outreach about that. We really wanted to put that on Excel's shoulders to do. And so I think that's the only thing that we didn't see when we came back in, that they really hadn't put any effort into what we'd asked of them. So.
And I noticed with the letters, the sample of the letters in the pack they sent, they essentially, what they've sent to the 2,500 or so property owners and within a certain radius, they're essentially saying that they use the buzz phrase now of we need to do this to, you know, for wildfire mitigation, to make sure it's safe and you know, because the equipment's aging and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of, that's somewhat of the void, but has there been any issue with that we're aware of, you know, that kind of thing? I think that's one. The other one too is, you know, what support are they going to provide to community operations, and I'll just say like the animal shelter, because having a full sheltered animal shelter with a bunch of dogs that are already reactive to stress to be subjected to that, I think that, are they going to support the need to perhaps foster out any animals in shelter during that time and the cost that the city, you know, and the county will incur as a result of that? And those kind of things, I think. So I don't know if you do referral agency feedback for TUPs as well. In this instance, that might be something to consider as well, to get feedback from other agencies as well on the impact.
Yeah, we were really hoping to get a little bit more lead time on this, right? We had discussions with them in June. We told them our concerns. They said they would come back to us. We heard back from them 2 weeks ago, and now they're saying they need a response pretty much immediately. So it was a little disappointing because we did specifically request public engagement, and they said they would do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Is this a request for an approval from us then?
Yeah, it's usually an administrative, but they wanted to bring it to
Yeah,
our
just because
level.
it's multifaceted.
Yeah, it's just something that we didn't feel, it has so many facets to it. It has the potential for so much impact to the community that we wanted to make sure that we created situational awareness and ask for your support in the approval process. So we would love a motion for conditional approval with some conditions, or a motion to approve or deny, or some guide, or just general guidance if you whatever you're so inclined to give us.
Well, the other thing I would suggest too is for those of you who were in town this past weekend with Lifetime, the helicopter that they used, and they're suggesting use of a similar type of helicopter for these, you know, being 100 feet, 100 yards, 225, whatever it is, it's not going to be enough. I mean, just the sound of those rotors, it is going to permeate the whole environment around the area during that time. And thinking about 300 of those flights. And I know I've started hearing, I don't know if y'all heard anything from residents about this weekend. They were very upset at the noise from the helicopter.
Yeah, it was surprising.
Yeah, so how much noise that generated, so that was during a certain period of time on one day. 300 flights over, what was it, a 2-week period or something?
Two
two-week
Yeah,
periods.
20 total days, yeah.
20 days.
But I think there's, you know, Excel has also said if we deny this permit, the flights are still gonna happen, right? They're still pursuing replacing these towers.
I mean, they have to, I think I think that's a necessary
Yeah.
element of the construction. I don't think it's probably not
Right.
reasonable to require them or ask for them to.
You know, we
use some
haven't
other method.
received any complaints from the two other, but very rural locations. So we approved the temporary use permit for Birdseye. We approved the temporary use permit for Lost Canyon with the understanding that they would do the notifications out in a more generous 2,500 foot radius of the property. And send out that communication to property owners. So those two we did approve in the past without bringing those to the board for consideration. But we do have to we have to absolutely recognize the distance to residential uses, the animal shelter, different assets in the community, the Mineral Belt Trail, the train. So this just has a greater degree of impact, and so we really wanted to make sure. Yes, we're gonna have to find some balance, but can we mitigate it? I would say industrial standards, and I think they're gonna exceed what's allowed in industrial standards, because that's 20 decibels from the boundary line of the yard. I would assert that it's going to exceed what industrial standards normally is. So we're gonna have a period of time within the community where we're not gonna have compliance with typical industrial standards. And it's gonna be a fairly big impact. So are there mitigating conditions? You know, they wanna do early hours, which is most favorable for helicopters. But yes, how can they support the adjacent uses? How could they be supportive of the residents in that area, the animal shelter, the Mineral Belt Trail, those kind of things? They are trying to say short closures of the Mineral Belt Trail, but again, let's get that messaging out to the community and users and to the Mineral Belt Trail. We asked them to meet with the Mineral Belt Trail. We asked them to meet with stakeholders and adjacent property owners, and that hasn't been done. So I think, you know, we were hopeful that they would start establishing those communications early so we could, but we did put the burden on them to do that work, and that just is something that hasn't been done that we're aware of.
Tim, do you have a comment?
Yeah, just recommending conditions for the board to think through, right? You know, they need to have direct communications with our communications director. They should have ads in the paper every week while this work is ongoing. You know, they must have communications with Public Works, the animal shelter, the advocates of Lake County, and understanding impacts to all of their operations, and I guess Big Al's. Up there, they need to have a dedicated website to this so people can track the work and what's being done, which they have for SiteWise. Nobody knows about, but they have one. Just thinking through some of those specific conditions for the board to think through, should you move through with approving this.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I think like those referral agencies or I'm thinking of like blackout dates too. I don't know if they plan to work through weekends, but special events or how are they gonna communicate with the hospital? Like, I mean, I don't quite understand FAA conflicts with the airport or Flight for Life or Lifetime. I mean, even if Lifetime doesn't have the helicopter, I'm thinking about the burro races and boom days and like, you know, the burros as well as the animals, the animal shelter. Maybe we should have blackout dates on weekends where they can.
Absolutely, that was not specified in the application. The FAA approval for the flight path was specified. They do have that, but they did not specify that they would only maintain weekday hours or weekday operations or certain hours. So, yeah, maybe defining those.
Yeah, it might be good to just list. I mean, the only ones coming to mind are Lifetime and Boom Days with the burros or similar uses, but I don't, there might be more.
There might be more, you know, if the rodeo ends up happening next year, everywhere too, just because
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what we could do is work on conditions of approval, send them to the board, for you to, and Chris to vet. And then we can keep it an administrative, approval, but we'd love potentially for you to vet the conditions of approval, and help. But certainly wanted to create that situational awareness that this is happening and get your input on it. So we could keep the approval administrative, but we're really seeking to look for support in creating those conditions and making sure that county leadership was aware that this is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, whichever way is more, sends a clearer message of
Yeah.
the requirements for conditions. But along with those special events, like, I think the checking with Public Works, the hospital, Climax, Mount Albert Power Plant, like what work, and I don't know if the Albert Power Plant, but what big work of other, values and assets, stakeholders in the county might this conflict with? It'd be good to get that feedback. Although hopefully it would just be east, right?
Well, I can show the proposed flight path, they're really trying to keep it very, as limited as they
Very,
can.
yeah.
You know, just directly to the line and then back and forth along the line and then taking one or two standard paths back to the flight path or the flight pad. But, no, I think the most expedient way would be for us to work on some conditions and just have, your vetting and approval, and then make that clear that we brought this in front of you guys to Excel when we submit that back to them.
Yeah, I can think of a few things to add in here, like, where do you send complaints? Who addresses complaints?
We were told it's Nathan Steele, however, hasn't communicated quite as quickly or as robustly.
He's no longer our
regional rep, but if you reach out to Mr. Irwin, he has a vice president's contact.
Okay.
And I'm sure they would be more than happy to help you.
Maybe that explains his attitude.
Yeah, perhaps.
Accountability is hard.
Yes.
I had one question, so they're gonna stop people going along the Mineral Belt Trail while they fly over, like, are they dragging these things along the ground, like, why?
They will be, it is suspended stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll
be carrying it, but not
I
long
mean,
enough.
they're in the, I could see warning people, but I mean, how low, like, is it really so low that they're worried about, like?
I anticipate it's an FAA requirement.
Well, I think that, and because it's cable based, so cable breaks and the load of materials is dumped on the Mineral Belt Trail while somebody's on the trail.
I think
I don't know, whatever.
It's gonna cross the Mineral Belt.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
why I was like, really, we couldn't find a spot to
It
not
didn't
cross the Mineral Belt?
I know, same, I have those concerns too of the Mineral Belt, and, I mean, that trail is always packed, so like that in itself concerns me of like the disruption of, recreation on that site, and it's used by so many different community members.
I suppose either way you slice it, you're crossing the Mineral Belt for work, north of the Mineral Belt or south of it.
Yeah, at some point.
It's, yeah.
Fly, you could like fly from 91, like up and over, but it would,
They did try to go, like Bryce said, with most direct, and we spent time trying to find other ways and paths that we thought would be better, and so we can see what they provided and probably, is less disruptive than anything else that we could find.
Did they consider reversing it to where the yard is down at the end by Climax? And the work is done up this way, so you don't have the yard and the moving of the materials and stuff, from Leadville down, if they considered talking to Climax.
Having their storage yard
Talking
there.
to Climax about a parcel that they could use to put the yard in.
Well, they already are using it, the birdside parcel.
But that's what I was gonna say, but so why isn't there another one or it seems like if that's their direction, where they're gonna go, why is that one not sufficient for this?
They were just claiming with their operations that they needed a location closer just because of the length of the line, right?
Yeah, well, they say 15 miles,
Yeah,
which takes a helicopter about 2 minutes to cover.
Probably not hauling a tower on a cable.
Okay, well, if you wanna, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, creating some of those conditions and thinking about, I don't know if you wanna specify blackout days or.
no, absolutely, I think, yeah, coordinating with Public Works and just seeing what special events are already scheduled and just making sure that those are very clear.
Like
to
permanent,
Excel that
yeah.
they're not allowed to do flight operations during those days.
I like the suggestion of the weekly ad as long as work is being done, and maybe permanent signage along the mineral belt
Yeah,
too.
okay.
Yeah, the word then that there's gonna be closures,
Mhm.
there's gonna be
Activity.
times like that, and
There isn't like a temporary reroute of the mineral belt either that you could.
they're still gonna cross it, you know what I mean?
It's
Yeah.
really not, it's just it's a tough layout, right? Because it's the only flat terrain in the
I know,
area,
it's just-
and anywhere else flat, they would be actually flying over more people and more
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Right. What a bummer.
Yeah,
Well,
I know,
it's good, I mean,
we gotta get
silver
those.
lining, right? We're getting our
Infrastructure.
grid
done.
upgraded, and
Yeah.
hopefully that'll lead to next further improvements.
And I mean, that is a real issue, like, I mean, they think that was the start of the Maui fire, was down lines.
There are a bunch of
Right.
issues
And
Yes.
for
And it
Superior
was
Marshall.
Yeah, just the yard
issues with
operations for this next
Marshall
month.
fire,
Yep.
right,
And
because
it
now
would be
insurance
next
companies
spring.
are able to sue Excel
And
Energy.
Oh, so
So
next
we have
spring
some
would be
time.
fine.
California and the
Yeah,
West
we have
Coast
some
are just
time.
getting like,
So that's why
I
making
mean,
a
they don't
condition
even
of
know what
approval.
to do, it's a
So
real
we do have,
issue.
we have time to get
Right.
messaging out,
Okay.
we just want them to
So-
be responsible.
Perfect. You guys hear them?
No, what?
Sorry, so just the next month or through September, they're proposing just bringing stuff to the yard, pretty light operations. But I guess semi trucks aren't light, but, bringing the materials in and the flights wouldn't start till next spring.
Okay, and that,
Go
sorry.
ahead, go ahead.
That access is actually off of County Road 8, or no?
They're
12th,
they're looking for 12, yeah.
So there's just this, if you go to the next, if you scroll down, right here, scroll down just a little bit
On the
more.
other side of Big Al's.
Yeah, just right
Right
next to
there.
Big Al's.
So Phil
Little green line.
Matson's property is who they're leasing a series
Oh,
of different
to
privately owned
create-
parcels.
Yeah.
Phil Matson, part of it is a county ask,
They've removed the county ask.
they removed the county ask, Dicus.
Rushing.
Phil Matson,
Rushing, that's.
Rushing, yeah. So they're all private parcels that they have acquired leases from.
Yeah.
Okay.
And is that an issue in terms of with the zoning there for those private property owners to lease their property for this purpose?
Not for temporary use, and it's, IM, so it's industrial, and, so IM and temporary.
Quick question maybe, I mean, could they not fit that on the county property and have access from County Road 8 instead of actually crossing the mineral belt with vehicles? Would they cross? Seems like they'd be or please add a condition to protect or repair the mineral belt after all the work's done if the asphalt is damaged, if they're hauling stuff in.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna have any vehicles on the mineral belt.
Right, there won't be.
Not
there won't
even
be-
crossing it to
No, oh, they might
put the
put the helicopter pad in.
equipment there?
They're not gonna have, so the helicopter will go from the pad to pick up the equipment to the line.
So the equipment is not gonna be stored here?
The equipment's gonna be stored in the yard, which is separate on the other side of the mineral belt from the helicopter pad.
Right.
Oh, okay, so
So it's that little red
the
square.
red is the pad.
Correct.
And the blue is the storage
the
yard.
storage yard.
Got it, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That makes sense, okay. Great, never mind.
So would you like us to come up with some conditions?
Yes, please.
And think through this, and maybe we,
Well, I think they were going to draft some and send it to y'all
And
for
send
review,
for
and
us
you
to-
can edit and add if you want to.
Yeah,
Okay.
you could edit, add, but we'll give a starting place.
okay, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll get back in
Yeah.
contact pretty shortly because they're looking for a response, so I'll be working on this afternoon.
Okay.
But it does give some time for some messaging on their part before the flights start, so.
Okay. All right.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, last.
This is a quick and easy one.
Yeah. Consideration of amending resolution 23-03 regarding observation of holidays for our 2023, for 2023 to amending it to resolution 2023-1A. Go right
Surprise,
ahead.
I erroneously identified a misnumbering, so no action needs to be taken.
Oh.
Bah!
Yay.
It was confusing because it's a 2022 resolution that
Oh.
happened in 2023. And so I just misread that.
Okay.
2022
Or-
resolution.
What?
Or other
So
way.
the resolution was approved in 2022 and then it was amended in 2023
For holidays? For the
for
Yeah.
holidays. And I read the 23 amendment as a 2023 resolution.
So you're looking at the wrong calendar year for what dates things fall? No.
No.
I understand.
Because it's for
It's just a
2023 holidays.
Correct, and it was approved in 2022, and then it's just the language was amended in 2023, so the resolution number does not need to change, or does it?
Because the way the board does it is 2-year holidays, so the beginning of this year, right, it has 23 and 24 holidays. And that had the addition of the extra day of July 4th and the addition of Juneteenth.
Yes.
So which is, I don't know, I guess we can't amend prior year's resolutions without, I don't know.
Well, and so there, y'all did an amendment, it looks like, but this year, observation, so amendment to resolution 2022-03, observation of holidays for 2023. Because you did back 2022, as Tim said, you did a resolution covering 2 years' holidays, but then holidays were added to it that weren't in that original resolution. That's what I'm understanding, right?
Yes.
And so that's why it was done April 2023.
So when we amend a resolution, we do not have to change
The numbering of it, no, unless, like this one was because I thought it was a new resolution for 2023.
Got it.
But it's
Okay,
not,
so
or
we've
no, it
amend-
just, it was
okay.
just amended in 23. You just amended the 2022 resolution in 23 to add holidays. So
Okay.
I wasn't aware of that.
So it will be re-recorded to,
No, it doesn't need,
no action
apparently,
needs
this
to
is
be
already so it should have been 2022-03, it was just re-recorded, an amendment to it was re-recorded in April of 2023 to add the new holidays, if I'm understanding.
okay,
That is
So it's
correct.
still keeps, it's not 2023-03, it's still 2022-03.
okay.
But in good news, I know everything about every resolution that's happened in 2023.
Okay, thank you. So no action needed on the last agenda item. We have our consent agenda left. I do have some corrections on the July 18th minutes. Cindy, do you want to note those?
Sure.
Or, okay, and I can send you the track changes in here.
Okay.
But they're in public comments. Justin Kurth came to see us, and his last name was recorded as Kurtz, and it should be Kurth. In item 2 listed, well, actually, I had a bigger question on whether we did remove all of these things or not. It has a number of things removed from the agenda, and I remember we kind of punted a couple of things here, but would you all help me look at this?
Mhm.
Because my notes are not matching with the minutes.
Wait, which one?
July 18th.
Yeah.
So the MOU between the county commissioners and Lake County Public Library, it says this item was removed from the agenda. I thought we approved that.
What day was that?
July 18th.
I thought we did too,
I thought that
because
was-
Brenna was here.
Yeah. I thought that was like, so I think we approved it.
So number 2 was approved, not removed.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe.
Yeah.
So it was moved to the 26th, so it
Was
was
it?
approved on the 26th of July.
Okay, so it was punted. There
okay.
was a meeting, we
Yeah.
had 2 meetings in the,
Okay.
okay, so could you just follow along and make sure we've got, I bet they're all right then.
Okay.
Okay, and then item 3, I think, Tracy captured, or somebody captured, Commissioner Marcelo moved to approve the Boone Days permit for August 4th through the 6th, based on the conditions listed in the report from, I'm sure you said staff, and Tracy had a question mark, she put SNAP. So I
Okay.
think that should just be from the
Staff.
report from staff. And number 4 was removed, the PSA with Greg Berry, and punted.
Just closed it, but I believe we're correct.
Yeah, there's 2 other questions, 2 other items, if you could double check for us, Liz, that'd be great. And then, yeah, item 6, the core service plan. And maybe that's what we just did.
Yes, the core service plan was on the 26th along with Greg Berry's PSA.
Yeah, and then the Lake County financial policies, was that also punted to the 26th?
That is correct.
Okay, great, then those are right. And so the only changes would be that item 3, staff versus SNAP, and then Justin Kurth, name.
His last Kurth?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you got it. And then that's it then. Those are easy.
Okay.
So with those small corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion?
None
for me.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Great, and with that, we will be adjourned at 2:05.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.